right, for those of you that are kind of waiting for all this to get passed out, if you see that QR code up there, if you can, use your phone. If not, we'll send around an iPad. But if you can go to, like, you're going to take a picture and then tap that website, that is going to be your application for the credentials for this. Yes, ma'am. By the end. By the end, it needs to be done, but if you don't click it now, I'll come back to the slide at the end if we need to. Yeah, I just, while they're kind of waiting for everything to go around.
Okay. Okay, y'all, this is an announcement that I forgot to do. He's gonna put it back up. This is an announcement I forgot to do, during church, so I'm gonna do it now. I thought about waiting, but I didn't wanna wait. Anyway, Bo and Deborah did not, say anything about this. But anyway, I wanted to mention, because it's Community Service Day, emphasize that we have, obviously that's a tithe envelope. If, I don't know if this is a pointer. I thought this was a pointer. Anyway, so if you should want to give to our church community service, then you would write in, and you don't have to do this today, obviously, because we're done with church, but anytime when you're doing your tithes and offering, if you should want to send money specifically for community service, either to this local church or to the Texas conference, the tithe envelope is designed so that you have your name and address on that side. Your tithes and offering, the first line is tithes. The local offerings is the next one, and it says local church budget and then building fund. There's two lines you can write in on one of those lines, community service. When it is in that section under the local offering section, whatever money you put it in and you write community service, it will stay here at this church. If you want to give to the Texas conference, the ACS, I gotta look on here. It says Texas line, the line item says Texas ACS, and I don't know if you can see it or not on here, but it's the words right above the blank line in the middle of the page where it says conference offerings. So if you should ever want to send money directly to ACS Community Service, Evans Community Service for the Texas Conference, you would put an amount on that line. Any questions? All right, thank you.
The certifications are going to be Intro to Disaster Response and Donations Operations. So you'll check both of those. Yeah, but you can select multiple. Those are the two that you're looking for. It's ours.
No. I gave it to her so she can mark who's
Oh,
here.
okay.
Make sure that I know. I told her because once they register, it goes to the conference,
Right.
to the NAD.
Uh, one maybe Texaco?
Oh, either one, as long as it says Texas.
The division.
This is the NAD website.
We used to do it.
Big, they gotta put us twice, I don't know.
We used to do it on our own website, but now they've taken that over. So I don't even get your responses. Walk anyway.
We don't have to walk backwards. Yeah.
And
I mean, I know the bottom two.
we'll need the paper to take the photos at the end. So
Okay, yeah, right, I understand, and that's why I separated them. But yeah, because then what?
the Texas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists.
Yes, this is official.
Yeah, mine are in the bottom pocket. In the flap. Yeah, that one. Mm-hmm.
So you're filling out this information that you're filling out now, because this is gonna go to the division. And then division,
Hi, my name is Levi Weber.
then they'll send us all the badges to us, and then we'll send it here, and then they can pass them out. And it'll just be a badge with your picture, so we are gonna take your picture. So if there is anything, sometimes when you go, like when we were in Kerrville, there's certain times that we had to wear our badges because they won't let you in if you're not somebody who knows what you're doing. They want to know that you're vetted by a corporation or an entity. And it just says Adventist Community Services, and then it'll say
Disaster response.
disaster
volunteer.
response. I have several because I have emotional spiritual care. Why is mine on yours? Anyway, so this is something that you'll be getting on a lanyard that you, that's what you're filling out that information for. And there is a quiz that we take at the end that's in your booklet there. It's just because we have to.
So you better be listening.
Yeah. But we do it as a group. We don't, yeah. So.
All right, we're going to get started.
Is there any questions on what you guys are filling out before we get started?
The conference is Texas Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and your position is going to be, I think it says disaster response volunteer. And the trainings are Intro to Disaster and Donations Operations. Now, position title will be the Disaster Response Volunteer.
There should be a drop down.
It's one of
If
the
you
last
click on it,
questions,
yeah.
I believe. Yes, intro to the
Disaster preparedness, and then
donations
operation.
operation. Now, a lot of what we did in our presentation this morning is part of that disaster preparedness part that we teach. So in this slide, I'm going to skip through a lot of this early stuff so we can get down to the disaster response part, or donations operations. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father God, Lord, as we go through this presentation, may your Spirit spark those questions that will engage, Lord, that we can be ready for when disaster does strike, to know what we need to do. And Lord, I just ask that you be with us and help us to give the information that will help them be prepared. In Jesus' name we ask, amen. All right, so you already know what ACS is and this, and a lot of these things we talk about because it's important to be involved with your community prior to disaster events. The Blue Skies is so important because even though I have a relationship with the state, even for us to get into Kerrville now is very, very difficult. We've been trying to go back and do projects. I actually just spoke with Salvation Army, Southwestern Division leader, and she's having problems getting in. Part of it is because so much money was donated to their fund, and they're keeping out all of the organizations like us that come out and do things for free. There's a lot of red tape because when something happens in an event like this, not only are the families getting money through FEMA, but they're also getting the insurance. And what happens is there can't be a duplication of benefits. So if insurance doesn't cover it and FEMA doesn't cover it, then we're allowed to help. But what happens is, we were just at a training where one of the state individuals was telling us that he has two ladies that he's working with because they got monies from insurance and FEMA, and then an organization like us came in and did the work for free. And now they want their money back to the tune of $60,000 and $45,000. And so it's very important for us to know those processes so that we don't cause more harm into the places that we're going to. So one of the ladies, the lower number, she actually still had the money in the bank, so she could pay that back. But the $60,000, they're trying to work with her to try to figure out how they're going to be able to get that monies back to FEMA or the insurance. I'm getting there. All right.
That was all part of our sermon this morning, so.
So, have you ever been involved in one of these events? Have you helped with a tornado? Have you helped with something? Flooding.
Y'all get a lot of flooding here, right?
So,
Flooding.
when you responded and you looked back at it afterwards, was there something you probably thought that you could have done differently and better? Well, that's what a lot of this is what things happen here that you can be better prepared for, so that when that crisis does happen, how are you going to respond? So one of the main things here is flooding, right? Is there anything else that you have? Like my panhandle, right now Texas is on fire over there. And they know they have to prepare for fire. Tornadoes. I remember when we first started this, one day was like 22 landing in the same day. Mm-hmm. Where do you go? See, we can't go everywhere. So we depend on people like you that are being prepared and ready for when that event happens, so that we can come in. Maybe I'm just, we're at another one of these events, but you're still trying to help serve in your area. Maybe I get one of our other drivers from our transportation department to load up one of the trucks and come out and bring supplies here. So I'm supporting your outreach. There's lots of ways where that can happen, but it's very difficult for us to get involved if our local churches aren't doing it first. Because a lot of times they'll tell us, if you're not there now, please don't go. Uvalde, when that shooting happened, they told us, stay out. We don't need anybody else there. But we had a church like 3 blocks away from where the school was. And so we went and did emotional spiritual care
As
there.
I say, we went to just support the church itself, because people inside the church were not only affected by it because it was their community, but one of the ladies in the church had been the teacher of these kids the year before. Somebody else, their nephew was one of the ones shot. So we went in that capacity, and then we met with the chaplains and things like that, and got involved in that side for the emotional, spiritual side of it, because obviously that was one of the big things, right, for that. But being a part of the community helps a lot. We did a training in Dallas area, and we were telling them this, and like 2 days later, a tornado went through Valley View and did a lot of damage. Well, the ACS director for, I forget which church it is, she tried to go and help, and they don't want to talk to you at that point, right? Because their mind is trying to get help for the people in the community. They don't have time to start making that relationship with you now. So, and it's just telling them, hey, this is what we can do. This is what we can help provide to the community if this happens, whether it's just volunteers, whether it's a building or supplies.
Now, so the question is, it's 3 a.m., you're at home, there's mandatory evacuations. What are you going to take with you? How long is that going to take you to pull together? You're supposed to. You're supposed to be ready.
That's right.
But here's the problem. Most people don't. And when you don't, now you're spending precious moments trying to find everything that you need to take or want to take. We had a pastor that was telling us in the Paradise fires in California, when he was there, luckily they had all their stuff prepared and ready, and his mother-in-law was in a nursing home. They knew they had to go get her, and so they're able to leave within 10 minutes because they've got everything really that they need to go. And they're on their way, and they realize Sister Sue, doesn't have anybody. Let's check on her. She's on the way. So they stopped by to see how she's doing, to check on her. Her car had broke down the day before. She had no way of getting out. So let's go. So they get out. They head to Mom. They're at the facility. Guess what? Administration evacuated. All the residents are still there.
Yeah. So they had to help get these individuals out and get them to safety.
So that you're missing an opportunity if you're not prepared. It's just like going to heaven. If we're not prepared, how are we going to take people with us?
And here's the thing. This is something we learned in a class that I had no idea, is a lot of care facilities, they're not, obviously if there's a fire at their facility, they need to get the residents out, correct? But if there's something like that, an evacuation, it's technically not their job. The lady that taught the class, she said, my mom was in a nursing home on the East Coast. I was on the West Coast. A hurricane was coming and going to hit them. And they called me and said, what are you going to do with your mom? And she's like, what do you mean, what am I going to do with my mom? yes, you have to come, they're evacuating us, and where's your mom going? She's like, where are y'all taking everybody else? That's not our responsibility. That's the responsibility of the family. So she had to, luckily, she caught a flight over, got her mom. They had to go to another state, and stay until it was safe to come back. But this is an opportunity where if you have a care facility close by, you can go and ask them what their requirements are, or what some of them do and some of them don't. So you ask them. And it's because they don't have the means to get everybody out. Like, some of them have a little van, right, that they take them to Walmart or whatever for those that are mobile and can go out. But a lot of them, they're not able to take, they don't have enough to take 100 residents out. So it's good to see if you have that in the area. In New Orleans, we had a lady approach us. She's like, oh, yeah, they're Adventists, great. Y'all are going to help us. And I said, oh, we are? She said, yes. And she was with the Cajun Navy, right, I think. And she said, we have an apartment complex that's for senior citizens, and more part of our job in this parish is to get them out when we're under evacuation orders. Do you have buses at your churches that can help? And I said, well, I don't know what churches are there in New Orleans, but I will get you connected to the lady in that area. So she connected with her, and they have a plan that if they're evacuated, you have a van, great. You're going to go and pick up, these 5 residents, and whatever. They planned it ahead of time. So it's things like that you can make connections with people in the community and see how you can help.
So there are 3 different things that you can do to be prepared. Yeah. Well, there are what emergencies happen in your area, to develop a emergency plan and to have that assembly kit. So what disasters are here? We've kind of already talked about that, but total in disasters, you got natural disasters, you have technological disasters, social, health, international, all of those have hit us. It's kind of a list of the naturals. Technological, these are just things that happen around your community,
I mean,
or
who ever
they
thought
can.
we would be with COVID, right? And be shut down. I never thought that would happen in my lifetime, but it did.
And who knows what's happening with this latest thing coming off the cruise ship. So
Yeah.
we just don't know. We just need to know and how to be prepared.
Oh, I was going to say, and getting your kids prepared, do that as a family or do it as a church. We did a few years ago, right after we took on this position, we had a real bad storm come through us, and our power went out. And I looked at Bo and I said, where's our flashlight? He's like, I don't know. And here comes my dad, because my parents live with us. My dad comes out and he's got all these flashlights and lanterns and stuff for us to start doing stuff. And I was like, well, this is pretty bad. We're the people that are supposed to be prepared for these things, and we didn't even know where our flashlight was. So we, for Christmas, bought backpacks for all of the family. We have 7 people in our home. We bought everybody their own backpack and a few items to get them started, and then we talked about, as a family, what kind of things would you want in your go bag? What kind of things, And I have one daughter has a go bag for her dog, because she's like, if I got to go, I got to make sure I have stuff for my dog. So she makes sure. So it's just doing this as a family or as a church family and making sure that you have the things that you need to go in those go bags. And that's something easy. You can Google it, go bag, and then it'll give you a list. Some of the things you can buy on Amazon, and it'll give you the whole bag with basic things in there, and then you need to have personal things in there. Like mine, I have a pair of contacts and then an old pair of glasses. And I have flip-flops in there in case you have to go in the middle of the night. Our go bags are in the corner of our room. We're able to grab them, go. But if I don't have shoes on, I have shoes in my go bag. So things like
That's
that.
not the recommendation. Real shoes are recommended.
That was the hardest thing for me in this job, is actually wear closed-toed shoes, because I worked summer camp forever and I was always in sandals, and I hate closed-toed shoes, but now I got to wear them all the time.
So sit down together as a family. We do this at outdoor school with our 5th and 6th graders, and I don't know how many of you have kids or grandkids but let me explain something. There's a reason we have fire plans at schools. We should do them at home. These kids had no idea what would happen. They would tell us all kinds of things if something happened at home. There's got to be a place where everybody comes together outside of the home. And some of them would say, I'll go to the tree in the backyard. And the other ones, well, where are your parents? Oh, they're over at the mailbox in the front yard. Well, that doesn't make sense because mom and dad are going to be looking for you, so they're going to run back in the house. So you got to have a plan, and most people, they don't think about it at home. It's good to have a plan. Deborah's known as the disaster lady because she made them go back and ask mom and dad to sit down with them and make a fire plan. They needed to have an escape. So the same thing for bigger disasters is just sit down and have that conversation. You don't want to scare them, but there's a reason we have them. The more we drill, the more it becomes second nature, the more we know, hey, if something happens, this is what I have to do. You've planned it, you've done it, so you make that connection a lot easier. And then trying to think, okay, where would my family be if something did happen? If it's during work hours, if it's during school hours, where are they going to be? What would happen on Sabbath? You know, what's the plan here at church? I'm not going to ask because most churches don't have a plan.
But it's good to have, if your kids are at home, they come home from school, they're at home by themselves, and a tornado comes through, and they're safe, but it demolishes half of the neighborhood. What is the plan? Do you have a plan where you can meet them within the neighborhood, or you know that Grandma Sally down the street is, you know, a connection that your kids might know that they can go to that's safe? It's having these discussions. What if the cell phones are down? And when we talk about this to the kids, they're like, what? That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it does. So talk to them about how, if they do go down, what places might have a landline. And the kids don't even know what a landline is, but explain to them what that is to be able to go and make a phone call. You know, have a card in their backpack or make them memorize a phone number. I know we all used to know everybody's phone numbers. Now nobody knows anybody's phone number, right? It's just you push their name on your phone. So it's having these discussions about that. I mean, my parents used to live in Florida, and when Hurricane Charlie came through, it hit my parents. It was supposed to go north of them at Tampa, but it went south of them at Port Charlotte, and they didn't have time to evacuate. They had to shelter in place. And I was actually on the phone with them on landlines, and the phone goes dead as my dad's saying, oh no, there goes our roof. I was like, what? I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was an adult. I had my own family, but I was still freaking out. I couldn't get a hold of my parents. For like 6 hours, I had no idea about my parents. And finally, they were able to get where they had phone service because everything was wiped out where they were. They were finally able to leave the area and told me that they were fine, but have a plan. Like we have a plan if something happens in our area. Sometimes you can't connect to a person in the area, but you can connect outside the area. So we have Bo's cousin that we know that we call to say, hey, let the girls know we're okay. Our girls are adults, but they still live with us, so, you know. And then the girls know that they're to call Tina, and so work that out. It's good to know and talk about it. And it's okay to talk about it, right? Because we know it's going to happen. We don't want the kids to be afraid of something. We want them to know this could happen, but we need to make sure we have a plan so we're prepared. And it's okay to be scared about it, but we need to be more prepared. Oh, we lost one of the things.
It's okay.
We talked about this.
No, they both went out.
No, they both went out.
Family information, information that you may want to have readily available in case a family member is, you know, we've seen where families get away from each other.
Separated.
They're not together. Date of birth, your passport numbers or your driver's license number, important medical information. Her dad's got a long list of medications that
Changes all the time.
and so if something happens, we've got to know what we, need to tell first responders or anything. So having that list and what you can do, where family members spend most of their time, whether it's work, school, whatever those locations are. Important information to have: the doctor, pharmacist, insurance information, homeowners or rental insurance. Let me tell you, the disasters that we respond to and the information we get back from the state, it's probably between 80 and 90% of people that are involved in a disaster are either uninsured or underinsured. Think about it. When you bought your house, that's what you valued your house at when you got your insurance. 15 years down the road, guess what? Your house is worth more. But you're not going to cover it any differently if you don't ask. And so now, insurances are going to bid you like 80% of what your value of your home is, unless you ask otherwise. That's what your original insurance cost is. It's not going to be rebuild it to what it was. It's going to be 80% really, because they're trying to make the number low to get you to use them. And then 15 years down the road, now it's even a greater disparity. So now you're going to get 60% of what it's going to cost to build your home, if that. The fires that we went in Colorado and worked with them, they were forcing them to rebuild green. So they had to have all extra kind of things that were on there. So a home that used to be $350,000 is now a $500,000 home, and their insurance is only going to give them 60% of the $350,000. So you got to think about these things. You want to talk about Joplin?
Yeah, we got to meet the fire chief who was head when the Joplin, Missouri tornado went through and wiped out majority of Joplin. He said that their neighbor, 2 weeks before that, their house had burned down. And he was talking to him and asking him, how things were going. And he said, well, I'm going to tell you, have you checked your homeowner's insurance lately? And he's like, no. He said, well, you need to, because like Bo was just saying, they had never upped it from when they first bought their home. He said, so I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to have to get another loan to be able to rebuild my house. And so the fire chief went to his insurance and he increased it, the value, and did all that he needed to do. And one of the things on there was, do you need a rental car? And he's like, no, there's 5 cars in my family. My kids are teenagers and whatnot. We're never going to need a rental car. If something happens, there's another person in the family that has a car. Well, the day that tornado went through was graduation. I don't know if y'all have seen, heard about this. This was in 2016, 12. I don't remember which year it was. And they were actually coming back from graduation when the sirens went off and it came through, right? So he, by the time he got back to his home, because he's the fire chief, so he had to go to the fire station, and all of his family went with him because they were in one car. By the time they got back to their home, guess what? No cars. All their cars, so they had one car. So he said, it was a joke, because he's like, make sure you still have a rental car in your policy. But it's checking those things that we just don't think about, and making sure, and it's helping those people within your church or your neighbor. If you know it's an older person, maybe helping them out, or a single mom or somebody, making sure that they're prepared is very important too. Because a lot of this stuff is overwhelming. Insurance, I don't know anything. That's Bo's job. But it's making sure that those around us are prepared also, and they are understanding the information.
Other things to have, it's easy to say, hard to do. make sure you have cash. That emergency stash that you can have available,
In
because
small bills.
yeah, because when disaster happens and there's no electricity, they ain't taking your credit card.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
In
what
some
some people
places they
think.
do.
That's what some people think.
Hey,
you know,
there was stuff happening at the HEB down the road from us, and the power went out
twice.
Twice. Well, the one day that it went out, they announced over the thing, everybody in the store, just bring it up. They still had to do some kind of thing, but they gave it to you for free. Isn't that awesome? Hey, so you never know. Hey, always shop at HEB now. I'm just kidding.
The other thing to think about is if you have somebody in your family that has functional needs.
Yes.
So we've talked with a lot of different fire departments and they would love if you know somebody that has that special someone living with them, if they had a call to the fire department and said, here's our situation, because they will come to the house and they will find what room is theirs. And if they know the kid's autistic or something, they know they have to act in a different way for them than someone else. So they would rather have that as a plan now and talk about it than when something does happen that they find out and it becomes a problem.
Yeah, a lot of them have it in their database. So if you have somebody who's like bedridden in your home, you can let them know, hey, I have my elderly mother that's bedridden. She's in whatever part of the house, so that they know that that's a place that they're gonna have to look for somebody, right? So it's talking to your fire department.
One of the other things that we've talked about, and you can do it here, if you have either members that are nurses or just getting the community together, to have a first aid class or CPR. AED, so, learn how to use one.
I thought it would be easy. We took an AED class. The lady even told us what to do. And then when I had to do it, I was like, oh, I don't know.
The machine tells you what to do.
But it's still practicing. It's knowing. And actually touching it and doing it is so different than somebody just telling you what to do. But when you actually physically get to do it, then you're like, oh, you kind of know what's going to happen. It just makes it easier.
Okay, how many's ever actually used a fire extinguisher? Yes. Okay, well, we have to go around and talk to people, about how to use one. You got to pull the pin. Where do you aim? At the top of the fire? No, at the base of the fire. So there's all these little things that, we talk about it when they're small, but as they grow, we don't talk about it anymore. People need to understand. I remember I was sitting inside and I heard something outside, and I went to the front door. It's glass, and I see my neighbor. He had pulled a truck that he was working on onto a trailer. The engine caught fire. And so he runs back over to his house and he grabs his garden hose, turns it on, and starts running. Not a good thing anyway. Okay, I'm glad he didn't make it with the garden hose. But he gets there and it was like a cartoon, he's running and the hose stops and, he stops too. Well, I have a fire extinguisher, close by, so I went out there. I was able to put it out so it didn't get too bad. But you got to know when to use them and, what types there are. There's a lot of different types. So it's not just a certain fire needs a certain fire extinguisher. Evacuating. Twitter is not where you find where to evacuate.
Unless it's an official.
But there's so many sources out there that'll tell you this is the best route. Make sure you follow the official routes. I got to tell you that.
Official information is the best. The worst we've seen it, of course, now that social media is such a big thing. When we were in Kerrville, it was a nightmare because they would put out on the official thing, the official website, we do not need any more supplies. And then Mary Sue over here decides to put out, oh, well, I just talked to them at such and such, and they're needing these items. So then we have somebody driving 6 hours that are trying to bring these items. They show up and they say, we're not taking them. So it's good to make sure that you're getting your information from the official sources.
An emergency supply kit. You know, it used to be 72 hours. Now they're telling you 5 days because it's harder and harder to get to people during a time of disaster. The suggestion is to have a kit there at your house, but to also have a smaller kit with you in your workplace, in your car, wherever you're at.
And maintaining your kits is important. There's something we do 2 times a year, and that's we change our clocks, right? We do it in the fall, and that's when you should check your kits and make sure you might want to put a blanket in there, you know, warmer clothing to keep you warm, I mean, and then in the spring when we change our clocks again, then you're checking your packs again, and you're, you know, updating them. If you have kids, obviously you might have to change what's in their kits, because if there's changes of clothes, they've grown, that kind of thing. And so those are the 2 times a year that we recommend, because we remember it, right? That's usually when they tell you to do what? Your smoke detectors. So it's things like that. And you know, we did a training in San Antonio, and they at a church, and they invited the community. And you know, these people in the community had no idea about checking their smoke detectors. I mean, so people just don't know things. So it's good to make sure that you check those things, but set up specific times to make sure your emergency kits are updated. And we talked about paperwork and things that go into your go bags. You can also put them online. You know, put it in the cloud. Certain information. But it's good to have them. We've been in so many places where people got out in a fire and they weren't able to take anything with them but what they had on them. They didn't get to grab their purse or anything. And so having it in another location is a good thing also.
Yeah, the first gentleman that came to us at the Panhandle fires said he had 30 seconds to grab his keys and his dog and get to the car before the fire hit his barn. This fire, now I know it's consuming around, but it was moving at 200 yards per second is how much it was consuming. Winds were heavy, the grass was dry. Seconds matter. Deborah had a lady come up to her.
Yeah, the first lady I met, she came up. We had our mobile distribution center there, and I was asking her, you know, what kind of things she needed, and she was telling me I was able to get out with just my sewing bag and her medicine, because she had just been sitting there doing her medicine thing and her, you know, daily doses, and she's like, I was able to grab that and get out. I didn't even get to get my husband. And I was like, oh, I didn't know what to say. You know, do you say, I'm sorry? You know, what do you say? And then she kind of started laughing. She's like, well, it was his ashes. So he burned twice. And then it was a super windy day that we were there. And she's like, and he's blown all over West Texas. I was like, oh my goodness. So, you know, it's, and in that instance, the problem in this fire that we were helping at, was the information wasn't getting sent out the way it should be because of the people in the area. Because a lot of it they were putting out on social media, and a lot of the individuals were older. Well, they're not on social media. So it's knowing your neighbors and making sure your neighbors are aware of things. You know, making sure that if you know you have an elderly neighbor, if something's happening, making sure that they're going to be prepared. Hey, you know, they're telling us we might have to evacuate. Are you know, can we help you with anything? So it's making sure that those around us, somebody at church, you know, making a phone call, making sure that Sister Sue is ready to go if you need to evacuate.
So if something happened here during church service, is there a plan? You know, there are so many times we are just going to think about, hey, we've got to get ourselves to safety. Well, who's going to be worried about the lady that's in the walker? Who's going to worry about the kids? Because, you know, they're off in different classrooms. You know, there's a lot of things that we've got to think about if something happens during a particular time in our life. And, you know, if we're not prepared as a church, which I'm glad we were invited to come, we miss valuable opportunities to serve in the community at the time they need it, not 2 months later, although, you know, communities are generally rebuilding for years. When we went to New Orleans to do some work down there, you can see where all the different hurricanes that hit, it's just layers. You can see them as they go inland. And it's just a horrible thing because the communities really just don't grow or grow back as easy as they could. Evacuation plans for members. If you have members, like I said earlier, with functional needs, contact information for everybody in the church so that it's split up, so you're not dependent on your lay pastor to call everybody and find out if they're good, they got a ride to get out of here. You know, your elders, your deacons, they need to have a set list. Hey, these are the 5 people you got to worry about. And these are so that you know that your members are taken care of. Sister White says in Ministry of Healing, the poor are to be relieved, the sick are cared for, the sorrowing and the bereaved comforted, the ignorant instructed. I'm not calling you ignorant. And the inexperienced counseled. Yeah, this is what we got to do. We've got to talk to each other, because if we don't know what we can do, then we're not going to be able to do it. Most importantly, she says, we are to weep with those that weep and rejoice with those that rejoice.
This morning I talked about the difference between ADRA and ACS, and I said that, you know, with Adventist Community Services, we are responsible for the North American Division territories, which is the North American Division, which is North America, Guam, the Micronesian Islands, and Bermuda. But that doesn't mean that's where we have to stop. We can go outside of those as long as we have been invited to come.
Yeah, so when disasters happen here, don't send your money to ADRA because they're not helping here. I'm just saying. We got a lot of people from other countries that are here, and all they've ever known is ADRA in their life. And there's nothing wrong with ADRA, okay? It's just, I'll get somebody coming up to me after Hurricane Helene I just donated $2,000 to ADRA. I said, thank you very much for ADRA. But that's the situation that we live in. So it's for us to inform. ACS is what's happening here in your life.
Yeah, local.
For anything outside of North America, that's you basically can say that's ADRA. But there are places that ADRA doesn't go to. So we were in American Samoa 2 years ago.
No, last
Was it
year.
last?
2025.
Wow. And it's an American territory, but it's not part of the North American Division. And ADRA wasn't coming out to help them. And we had a school going out there on a mission trip, and they had done a lot of work with us. And so they were talking with their friends there in American Samoa, and they said, hey, ACS is, you know, and they were telling them. And so they asked us to come out and train them to get out into the community, because the church that was growing out there was the Latter-day Saints, because they were doing service projects. And they were growing by leaps and bounds because they were tending to the people's needs. And so that's what we have to do. And How does ACS assist during disasters?
Well, we do donations management is the big thing that we do. Sometimes in some locations, we can provide shelter, feeding centers. Sometimes they're mobile. Disaster assessment, that's something that you have to be trained on, that you can do. And, you know, if you have people that are bilingual, sometimes that's the biggest thing is having people available to be able to talk to others. That was a big thing they needed in Kerrville. They needed a lot of bilingual individuals. So when people were calling for assistance and different stuff, they didn't have as many as they needed.
Yeah, so we have a organization that we work with called Crisis Cleanup. And they basically, at different disasters, they organize basically all the different homes that need to get, you know, stripped and gutted and everything from the flooding or whatever. They maintain a list, and then each of our organizations get on that list and claim which houses that we want to assist with. And they are always looking for people to answer the phones. That's just every disaster. They need somebody to volunteer to answer the phones. And being bilingual makes it a lot better, but doesn't have to be. But they're always looking for somebody to answer phones and to help with their little list of things that they're telling you to tell people.
Yeah, when we were helping in Hurricane Helene, we were driving around, and we went and came upon one of the Adventist churches there, and it was up on a little hill, and they were distributing things out of their church. And we get there, and the pastor is taking us around the church, and they have every square inch of that place was full of supplies. The hallways, very organized. The hallways had toilet paper, paper towels. You went in this room, and it was, you know, kids' clothing, and this was this, and this was that. And the pastor was Ukrainian, and he was telling a gentleman had come through the line because they were also doing warm meals. Because the church had actually just got their power on and water the day that we came. And they had first responders sleeping in their sanctuary. And this gentleman came through, and he was coming to get some more meals. And when he left, the pastor prayed with him. He got some meals, and when he left, he was telling Bo that gentleman right there, his family was new to the area. They had just been only there a couple months, and there was several families that was there in a neighborhood north of the church. And when this disaster happened, they did not know what to do, and they did not speak English. They only spoke Ukrainian. And when the dad happened to be driving one day and he saw that the church was open, he decided, I'm going to come and see if they needed supplies. And when he started speaking, and then the pastor started speaking back to him in Ukrainian, he was so relieved that he finally had somebody he could connect with that spoke their language. Because that's not what we put out. And when we put out stuff, we put it out in English and Spanish, right? But we don't put it out the government does, when they're putting out information, they're not putting it in all these languages. And so now they started making this relationship with this Ukrainian. There's, I think, 4 families for them, just because they have that connection. It doesn't mean they're going to come to church. We don't know. But he made that relationship and that connection with them.
Yeah, let me tell you, that walking into that church made me cry. It doesn't take much, but it was absolutely amazing. And I was asking the pastor, I said, Pastor, I don't know of many churches that would have done this to their church. To allow their church to be filled with supplies. Sanctuary, bedding for first responders. I said, how did you talk your members into this? This is unbelievable. He said, well, me and the elders got together and we just started praying. We said, Lord, we want to help. We don't know what to do. We don't have anything to give, but we want to help. Show us what to do. And when you saw on the news where everybody was complaining how they were sending trucks back because they didn't want them to go up into the areas where everything was. Well, those trucks, some of them, saw their church and stopped and said, hey, could you use a truckload of food? Well, absolutely we can use that. And then another truck, can you use some water? Yes. And then, hey, we got some diapers. And slowly but surely their church was just filling up with supplies that they didn't buy, that they didn't ask for. God provided. And he told me that having his church look that way was difficult for about 2 days. And when he started seeing the responses of the community that they were able to help, he said that was more powerful than any sermons he could ever give. And he was more than happy that his church looked in disarray. And it is just amazing what they were able to do with their church saying, God, lead us. We don't have it, but we know you can get it. I don't know if the VOAD's in the paper. So, I mean, it should be. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is what we call the VOAD. And it is the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. So back in 1969, Hurricane Camille hit. And the Adventist church showed up at the corner of a street, and the Baptist church showed up at the corner of the street, and the Catholic church showed up at that corner of the street, and we all had the same stuff. So there were 7 of us organizations that said, hey, we got a problem. We've got to talk. And so we got together, and let me tell you who we are. The Christian Reformed World Relief Committee, the Mennonite Disaster Service, the National Catholic Disaster Relief Committee, the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, the American Red Cross, and the Southern Baptist Convention, along with the Adventists, sat down and created this VOAD. Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. VOAD. VOAD. And so there's a national VOAD, and then each of the states have their own VOAD, and then the counties may have a VOAD. There's lots of different ones. I get calls from different counties to be on different things. And these are so important because we talk about collaboration, cooperation, communication, and that last C that always evades me. Wow. Let me think about it. Cooperation, coordination, communications. Maybe I said collaboration already. So basically, we have to work together so that we don't show up and do the same thing. So at that time, Adventist Community Services or the Seventh-day Adventist Church said, hey, we'll take on donations. Mainly because none of the other churches wanted all the trash bags with the dirty clothes in it. Because that's basically what would show up. And if we had slides, I'd show you how bad some of it is. It gets horrible. Parking lots, this whole church would be covered in trash bags with clothes. We call it more like stuff, and I'll talk about that. One of the things that we all agreed with is that we're not going to have these spontaneous, unaffiliated volunteers, that we're going to train our people so that they know what they're doing before they get there. Because one of the problems that we have is we have a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing show up, and it creates another crisis, along with the extra donations that just get out of hand because somebody doesn't know what they're doing with it. Working disasters can be difficult. There is a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of it. Hurricane Helene, they told us, get here now. We got there, and we waited, and we waited. And for about a week and a half, we waited for the state to finally get a warehouse so that we could actually do something with donations. They were getting piled up at all these sites, all these churches. They were overrun with everything. During that week and a half, we actually got to do a little bit of a training with some FEMA cadets. And one of the things that they talked about, and we'll talk about it a little bit here, is they asked me and another lady, they said, y'all are Seventh-day Adventists, right? Yes. Y'all go to church on Saturday, right? Yes. So what do y'all do? Do y'all close down on Saturday? Y'all don't work on Saturday. And I was like, no. See, you've got a vision problem. See, we don't see it as work. We're serving. You know, you got to understand what our reason is versus what your reason is. Because we're not there, this isn't a job. I mean, I may get paid for it, thank the Lord. Can you imagine? Your job is to get people the needs that they want, you know, that they need to have all the time. You imagine the tears that I get to see? You know, a homeless man crying over getting some shampoo because they haven't been able to wash their hair in so long. We had a man crying because he needed a belt to get to work. And we didn't have anything in the donation, so we gave him a gift card. He went to Walmart and came back with the card and the receipt saying thank you because he wanted to give us the change back because he needed that belt so he could wear it to work. A grown man crying over a belt. We don't understand what people are going through in crisis. And when we serve and not work, it makes a whole lot of difference. Like I said, it gets pretty cumbersome, I guess, when we're working in structures during disaster. But we were able to get something, 10 days in, and we were able to train those that were working there in Helene in North Carolina before they got their large warehouse. But the thing is, when you volunteer, it's going to be that point at some point when you're there. I need you over here. I need you over here. Just a minute. Just a minute. And you're going to get frustrated because we all get frustrated. But it's going to happen, and just realize we are trying to do everything that we can in a timely fashion. Go ahead.
Well, we already talked about the photo credentials are important. Like I said, there was when we actually did, well, we weren't in charge of ACS at the time, but when Hurricane Harvey hit, a lot of our master guides were out in boats bringing people to safety. And some of them had just taken this class not too, like a month or so earlier, and so they had credentials. Well, when FEMA showed up, they shut it down, and if you didn't have credentials, they weren't gonna let you in. They don't care if your boat was saving, 50 people at a time, they weren't gonna let you in. So sometimes having these credentials and making sure they're good for 3 years is, we've never had it in a situation where we had to show our credentials for what we were doing at the donations site. But some of the other areas that Bo had to go into, he had to have his credentials, because they want to know that you understand what's happening, and that you're not just somebody who showed up. And because a lot of times those spontaneous volunteers that show up are more of a
Nuisance.
problem than, because when we were in Kerrville, 14,000 people signed up to volunteer, because they wanted everybody to sign up on the website, say what you could do. So then whenever they needed, if you're somebody who knew how to work big equipment, if they needed big equipment, they sent that alert out to those individuals, hey, can you come on this day, because we need backhoe operators or whatever. Well, on one of the Sabbaths that we were there, they had 400 showed up on a Saturday, and they came to us and said, we don't have nothing for these people to do. And so luckily we had a bunch of Gaylords, which are big, huge boxes full of clothing, and the trucks that we had, we loaded them up. They took them out to the high school. They were in the parking lot of the high school, and all those individuals helped organize, sort. I wasn't there, so I don't know how they, coordinated them and did all that. But sometimes when you show up, it's more of a hindrance to those people that are trying to do good for it, and especially when you don't understand the process of things. We can see it there.
That's okay.
Yes, go ahead. Sure. That's okay.
Sure. That's why I said early, it's important for our local church to be active immediately, because that means you're out there doing something in your community when the disaster happened. So Kerrville, we had our pastor and several of his church members out helping clean up people's yards. They were, getting whatever supplies they could to those people. So when I'm on my call with the state, I can basically say, hey, I've already got people out here working.
And this is sad to say, but this is a very competitive thing that happens now.
Yeah, I told you it started with 7.
There's hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people. And they all want to get their face out there first, because what do they want? They want the money that comes with it. Organizations.
There's over 300, I think, national members now, and at the state levels, it's even more.
So when the city officials know, they know that, I know I can call the Adventist Church, and they're going to bring me 25 volunteers like that to help me with something, whatever the case may be, right? If you have that relationship, then they're already going to know. Because even for Kerrville, Bo called and he goes, hey, do you need me to come out? We can bring the mobile unit. We can, whatever. And because we went down on Monday after it happened and took supplies for the church so he could take it to those families that they had already been helping. And then on Wednesday, we actually took down the mobile unit. And we were there for 2 days in the Walmart parking lot before they asked us to take over and run a warehouse that was going to be an overflow of the overflow of the overflow. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry,
That's the state.
It's the state. Yes, the state contacts us, yes.
Yeah, the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
We refer to them as TDEM, so if you hear us say TDEM, that's the Texas Department of Emergency Management. Because in the instance of Kerrville, the Salvation Army already had a huge complex there and everything, and the lady, right, it was a lady that was overseeing that, she automatically says, we'll do donations.
They weren't happy,
Yeah.
her bosses.
Because they don't know how to do donations in the magnitude that came in. They didn't know how to work it. They didn't understand the process of doing it. And so when we came and we started, they had us do another warehouse. The donations that we were getting from what people were taking to this Salvation Army, they called it the Croc location. We were getting big, huge boxes with bleach mixed with ammonia. Well, y'all all did that, but apparently the people packing those boxes had no idea that you weren't supposed to put those two items together.
And the one bottle of ammonia didn't even have a cap.
Yes,
It was just the
it just
foil.
had the seal thing on it. Yes, and then they had food items with bleach.
On top of it.
On top of, yeah, bleach. So not understanding how to do it. And I get it that sometimes you have volunteers come in that help you, but they need to be trained and explained to, hey, when you're bringing these in, let's automatically put, all the chemicals here, and and it's things like that. They were so overwhelmed there for that. But it was another thing of not knowing what people needed and getting it out, the information out. Because in the morning, the Croc would put out information saying, hey, we need water, we need this, we need this. And by 3 o'clock, we don't need this and this and this. But then later in the evening, they would say, oh, but we need this and this. No, you got to say, these are the items we need, and in big letters, we do not need water. Because I'm going to tell you, every disaster we've worked at, we've never needed bottles of water, ever. You need the electrolytes, you need the Gatorade and things like that for the first responders. Water
shows up.
We laugh that there's trucks driving around the United States that just have water in them that just show up whenever there's a disaster happening. We had so much water in Kerrville, we had to put, and this is just the place we were doing, that we had to put it outside. Well, then what happens is it's outside.
Even if you cover it up, it still gets too hot.
You can't use it. So, but there was no place we could take it. So information and making sure that, you keep the correct information. And like I said, saying and it's okay to say, we do not need these items. And then we've been in disasters where people show up with stuff. Hey, can you drop it off, find a whatever on your way back to home and see if there's another organization that can be blessed by what you're bringing us, because we really don't need it. And it's okay to say that. And we've had to say that multiple times out there saying, yeah, did you have something? Yeah, I think.
Well,
But he'll
so
say something. Yeah.
all of this is predicated that you've got communication with your city officials. Everything. It's about creating that relationship now. The blue skies. So all these different events that you saw us talking about during church, talking to the city manager, saying, hey, what can we do? Clean the city park. Put on a little community gathering where you have some giveaways, where you teach them how to cook healthy. There's lots of different things. And when they see that you're doing stuff for the community, you're a resource already. So when things happen, you're already doing stuff with the city. So they're going to say, hey, how can you help? So a lot of it is all based on building a relationship now. And they know this church is willing, with volunteers, whatever it takes, they're willing to be part of that process when something bad happens. I'm going to get the call from the state, not you. But if you're doing something when something happens, and I know it's in this area, I'm calling Pastor Ford. You know what my problem is right now? Most of the churches I call and say, hey, Pastor, what's going on? I just saw tornadoes in the area. Are y'all okay? Oh, yeah, the members are good. Church is fine. And I watched 3 tornadoes go through a place that we used to live in, and everybody said it was fine. The state calls me and says, we need help. My church didn't ask me. I had to wait for the state because the church isn't being responsible to the communities that they're supposed to be serving. That's really what it boils down to. When you start the process of serving your community, it makes my job so much easier because I call Pastor Ford and he said, yeah, I got 10 people out doing the feeding. We're working with the church down the road. We're doing this. Yeah.
City of Cedar Park. And so I went to Evgeny and said, look, we need to talk to Pastor Roger and see if he can help us at Nameless Valley Ranch. And so we went and talked to him. He says, let me make a couple phone calls. He says, okay, it's done. I said, what's done? I got a couple of trucks. I'm expecting pickup trucks. 2 of them, just like that, because of contact. And he knew who to call, and they knew how to respond, and they were willing to respond like that.
And we have a lady that's in Houston area. They call her the yellow bucket lady because you know our disaster buckets are yellow buckets. But during Harvey, the Woodlands, which is north of Houston, they couldn't get supplies to them. Everybody was taking, Houston, everything was Houston. So these other towns that are outside of it, they weren't getting help. And so she happened to know, I don't know who the official was there at the city, and she's like, I'm going to get you yellow buckets. I'm going to get you buckets with supplies. And she called, and they brought down yellow buckets. And now for anything, she's the yellow bucket lady anytime. She's got the city, they have a storage unit where they have buckets that are filled. Are they empty?
Some filled and some empty. So the community can be part of filling the buckets. Yeah. So they're working, they're cooperating, they're collaborating together on how to get those done. Man, I thought of something.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
It's
the yellow bucket?
Cleaning supplies.
It's a 5-gallon bucket that we put cleaning supplies in. So if somebody needs to clean up, it's going to have gloves, bleach, and it's in the back of your packet. There's all the different kind of kits that we used to do, but a lot of them we don't do anymore because so many organizations out there provide it. The buckets, before it was only the Adventists that had the yellow buckets. Now everybody's got a bucket with something in it. Yeah. Bo took buckets over to Mississippi when they were having problems with their water. What was the town? Jackson. And the ACS people wanted them because they were giving them to the family. So, because it does have Clorox wipes and things in there. But then they were putting paper plates and other items because
they couldn't use the water to wash their dishes. They couldn't use the water
to wash, so they were giving them supplies that they could use for that particular disaster that they were having.
But what Pastor was talking about is the relationships and things that we have are so important.
Maybe we're going to talk about water.
Yeah,
water.
We've been doing stuff with a gentleman in Conroe. They've got a great food ministry now, and we had been giving them some supplies for different things, and he had a buddy that he talked to in the area that was getting water. And he said, hey, let me give you his information. Let's see what he can do. Well, we had the derecho in Houston, tornado that was just straight line winds that tore up Houston. We had the Montgomery County, all of their water was bad. We had Hurricane Beryl went through, and during all of these times, I made a contact with that gentleman, and I've probably sent out about 15 or 20 18-wheelers full of water to those places. Now, I know I tell you don't send water, but when I'm on a call and
Unless it's requested.
here's the difference. Hurricane Beryl, just like what Harvey was, everybody's sending stuff to Houston proper. Okay, we had a little community that we had a church plant in south of there called Rosharon, and it's Cambodian and Laotian immigrants that deal primarily, they make their living off of their greenhouses. Okay, that's their livelihood. They got destroyed. And I'm on this call with the state, and I'm hearing this VOAD leader from down there, and he's just, everything's going to Houston. Why can't you help us? And going on. And so I sent him a message off to the side, and we have a conversation, and their water is contaminated. And so they don't know what they're going to do. There's no water out there for them. Ain't nobody sending anything. And so I make a call, and we get a truckload of water down there, and we bought materials for them to restore their greenhouses. So it doesn't have to be in the big areas where everybody else is being seen. It's okay. We restored the livelihood of a community. That's more powerful to me. We have people that want to go to all the same big homeless places and try to serve 500 homeless instead of traveling 5 miles to a place where there's 25 homeless that they can really make an impact with. We've got to stop looking at trying to make a name for ourselves and just trying to make an impact, where God can lead us. And there are so many different classes that we can teach and be part of. What did you have to say?
Oh, no, and I was going to say that a lot of times you see when there's disasters, people say, well, where's Adventist Community Services? Well, we're not the first responders. We're not the Red Cross, because what does Red Cross do? They provide shelter, right? Salvation Army does food. Baptist Men, or what are they called now? I don't remember.
There's a bunch of different ones.
They do food. We're not the front line. You're not going to see us. We're the ones that are in the warehouse, and then we're the ones that do the long-term recovery. So we're not going to be the big one that you're going to see, the flashy ACS, unless they happen to come interview poor Bo, and because we're running a warehouse. But know that sometimes it's frustrating, but what we do matters. The little things, that matters. Another important thing that we're trying to get done in all our areas is emotional spiritual care training. We've talked to the officers at the conference. We would love it to be able to do it in all our areas, because when we took the class, emotional spiritual training, oh my goodness, it changed the way you see people, and you don't have to always have the answers. Sometimes it's just listening to those individuals. And letting them talk. Sometimes they just need to talk, right? They need to just tell you, or sometimes it's just walking with them. And if we're doing a distribution center and somebody's come in and their house just burned down, they don't know, you ask them, what can I help you find? They might not, I don't know. I mean, we've had that so many times where people are like, I don't even know what I need. And I'm in my head, how do they not know what they need? They just lost, they can't think. They need to be able to process things. So it's emotional spiritual training is so great. understanding how to deal with people. I don't want to say deal with people, that's the wrong way to say that, but how to stand and support them whenever you're dealing with a tragedy. When we were in Uvalde, that was a huge thing. This was a loss of, and then the same thing with Kerrville. Kerrville was, when it has to do with children, right, it just changes things. In Kerrville, we weren't out there doing emotional spiritual care, but we were, because we had days that first responders, because they're required to work so many days and then they have to take off a day. Well, we had a lot of firefighters that came in on their day off because they needed to keep busy. They don't want to just sit there, because then their mind is thinking, there's people out there I need to find, there's this, that. So they would come into the warehouse, and then they slowly would start talking to us and telling us things that, were horrific that they had seen, but they just needed to talk. And so, it's important. That's a very important class, or very important thing to have as emotional spiritual training.
The emotional spiritual training, when you're out there, a lot of times that's really the ministry of presence. Just being there. You're not going to have the right answer, because sometimes there's just not words. Sometimes they just need to talk, and it's okay. So you're just there really to walk them through and just be by their side. It is very difficult when you're with people that don't know. They're looking at everything and they just can't see what they need, or they know they need it, but somebody behind them may need it more, and so they won't take it. So there is a lot of that. There's a little bit of guilt in there that they don't want to take something that somebody else can use. And then there's the people that load up with everything. It's in every disaster. There's people that don't care about anybody else, and there's ones that don't even care about themselves because they're worried about somebody else behind them. The pledge that we're asking you really to make today.
Motion.
Oh. That's part of the situation, the problem that we had in Kerrville. So when that happened, the county would not allow any of their stuff to leave the county. They were afraid they wouldn't get it back. And you compound that with one of the communities. It's not even a city. It's not.
Hunt.
Yeah. They would not allow their stuff to get mixed with everybody else's because they wanted it back. There is not a facility there big enough to contain all the stuff that they got donated. But they would not let it leave. We were...
I was just looking at it.
We weren't even in a space as big as this, maybe. Maybe we were. Maybe about this big.
We were in a hangar at the airport.
A part of a hangar.
A part of a hangar. It was an L shape that we were in, and we were the overflow for everything. But they provided it. It came through with
the state.
The state provided it for us.
We were a secret location because they didn't want donations to keep coming in, because they knew we had a big warehouse, because we didn't have any space that they would let us use. So it was very, very difficult. Everything is, I can have a plan for every disaster, but guess what? When I get there, that plan doesn't work. We got to change.
We just met with a city north of us and sat down with their emergency manager and one of the gentlemen that we met actually in Kerrville, and we worked out an MOU with them as Texas Conference ACS, and we let them know, if this is what you want us to do, this is what we need, and we need warehousing space. And they know.
They're blessed in that area. There's a lot of warehouses that have empty spaces. So that's one thing. We've been to places where they've had tornadoes in East Texas where it was a church and they tried to use it as the donation center, and it got so full they have to move it. Now you've just confused all the people that are bringing it, all the people that are trying to pick it up, because now it's in another location. So actually, it was in Gilmer. It was in Gilmer.
It was in Gilmer, yeah.
Yeah,
Close, close.
it's just difficult because you're trying to use whatever space it is. You're trying to use the facilities you can. In the Panhandle, we had a church that's amazing. Not our church, it was another church, but they have so many of these fire disasters that the first week, their fellowship hall is full of water, food, the necessities. They shut it down that week, and then the next week is all supplies for cleanup. And then they shut it down, and
The third week.
the third week is
They
go out into the community to help them with the supplies. But basically, they give them the supplies to start cleaning up their place to make them do it on their own. So people don't expect for them to be the ones to come out and do all the work for them. Here's the supplies. We'll be out next week to help you.
And it's okay to ask your emergency manager, hey, do we have a plan in our city, for it? What do we plan on doing? We talked to several emergency managers
That don't have a
we are
clue.
in Kerrville that have no plan, and a lot of them are small towns. They just didn't have them, and they asked our opinion on stuff. They asked if we can help, and of course it's harder in places where we don't have an Adventist church in that town, to where we can say, oh, well, we can connect you with these individuals. That kind of thing. So it's okay to ask your emergency manager, do we have a plan?
I don't want to say they don't have a plan. They have a plan, but it's like the most basic skeleton plan that every city has to have. The issue is they don't have the details. They don't know who's going to actually come and help. They don't know who's going to provide X, Y, or Z. So that's why this city reached out to us and said, we need to make sure that we have somebody that can take care of our donations when something happens. So if I have that guaranteed with you coming in for donations, I don't even have to worry about that anymore. Now I have to focus on these other issues. And so that's what you really need to work with them, is to try to see where you can fit in. And a lot of times, look, if you don't have the financial resources, if you don't have the facility, you've got bodies, and you got people that can be willing to help. That's sometimes all you can offer, but sometimes that's what they need, is just people to help.
And a lot of times we'll go out and help and get it going.
And then we'll turn it over.
Kerrville, we were there, I think, the longest, because we were there a month doing the warehouse. But then we turned it over to a local lady. She wasn't an Adventist. But we turned it over to her, and then she dealt with what was left and how to shut down the donations. Because depending on the disaster and things that are happening, depends on how long your donations facility would be in operation. When we did the Marshall fires, they were going for 6 months. And when we went out and helped them, I think they'd been there 45 days, I think it was, a month and a half.
Yeah, no days off.
And no day off. Our ACS team, our ACS team. So we went out so we could give them a little bit of respite. They could have some days off, kind of thing. But
North Carolina was almost a year, right?
yeah. So, but it depends on for what we are known for the donations piece of it. It's to have a plan with the city. How long do we need this to be open for? When we were in the Panhandle fires, it was 2 weeks that we were there. And then when we left, we got rid of everything except for the things they needed to clean up for fire. The sifters, the wheelbarrows, that kind of stuff. And
Well, there was water and snacks. They use those for their school, for the football team, and for the nutritious snacks for the kids that they put together at the elementary schools and stuff.
Yeah.
For here? No, the church contacted us.
No, yes.
But we do have different, like we had our church in San Antonio asked us to come do a preparedness class where we brought the community in to learn how to pack their bags and to be prepared for things like that. But then we had another church that took that information and they went to their city and they asked their fire department and all of them. And the city management actually sent someone from the city to do the training as well. So there's lots of ways that you can work with the city to empower your community. They do have programs in some cities where they teach the elderly how to use electronics or deal with spam, you know, because so many people are getting hit with these emails that are fraudulent, and our elderly, like my father-in-law, clicks on everything, you know, and it can be a problem. So we have to, you know, and so they're using the city to do those kinds of things. The city asked us to come to Roanoke, the town above us. We worked with one of their fire chiefs, I guess, assistant or fire inspector. We worked with him there in Kerrville, and when he went back to his city manager, he said, I worked with these guys, we need to have them. So they contacted us to be part of their emergency plan. And since then, I've just got one from North Richland Hills asking us to be part of their plan as well. So it's one of those things where as you work with cities, they're going to try to find a way to get you involved. And because of, technically, we are the union, so Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, you know, all of it is something that I help coordinate. So I'll get a call from FEMA for, hey, I can't get a hold of your guy in New Mexico. I need help. What can you do? And, you know, we try to do what we can. There are times that the other organizations don't want us there. We were dealing with fires in New Mexico, and Salvation Army had taken over donations there, but they were overwhelmed, didn't know what they were doing, and the state FEMA called us to come and be part of it, and the VOAD was asking us to be a part of it. But when I got on the call with all the other organizations, the hierarchy of the Salvation Army was saying, no, we don't want your help. We don't need you there. I'm like, look, I don't need to make face. I'm just going, give me a week to show you what to do, and I'm gone. I just want to help you be able to serve the community. But they didn't want us. And the VOAD chair was like, hey, I'll make them. I don't want to work with people that don't want me there. I mean, that's not going to be good. So there are times where it can get difficult. I've got a great relationship with the division leader that's over the Dallas warehouse. We work so well together. What? Oh, we're good. Don't worry about it. Oh, I mean, yeah, we can bring one here, I guess. We can put a table here. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take 10 minutes. Y'all get up, stretch your legs, go to the bathroom. And if I know you had a question, you want to do it really fast? Go ahead. We're trying to get it. Here's our issue, is there's only 2 people that can train it. So we're trying to get stuff, and we've been working with our boss. One of them is our boss at the division, at the North American division, that can do it.
And we're getting actually 2 more, one in Spanish and one in English, out of the Georgia Cumberland Conference.
Yeah.
That they're almost certified to be able to teach, so then we can have more people. But
and when we do it, we'll do it by area, and it'll have to be a first come, first serve, because there's only, you get too big of a group in that training, and it's too much. Because we've taken one, we've taken one, it was actually out of San Antonio, crisis counseling, I forget what it was, when we first got on, and it was free. And Crisis resilience, yes. And I can send all of it out, and then she can share. Well, I have all y'all's emails. I can share it out whenever we get back in the office next week. And we did it all online, and it was great. And I actually like that one better because I was meeting people from other walks of life. It wasn't just people I went to church with. You know what I mean? It was people that were just and it was really great. I really liked it. It was very informative. Well, that's something, and a lot of times we don't get asked to come do emotional spiritual care because in some areas we have, but in Texas we haven't yet. It's just having it to know, because it's really helped us in our disasters and knowing that. And like in Uvalde, we had a lady that was on our team that actually took it with us, but she was a licensed therapist anyway, and so she was able to do a lot of it. But it was just having that training to know, and you get a credential. Like for that one, we got a credential for it, so we could say, hey, we have it. But a lot of the disasters we go to, we have Billy Graham chaplains that come. Well, people don't want to talk to me. They want to talk to somebody who was, part of Billy Graham.
Yeah, the large disasters have
Yeah.
the major national chaplains that come out and do it, and so that's generally who the state would put over all of that. So we rely on that training more for what we're doing with the people that we come in contact with, whether we're in the warehouse or if we're out serving at somebody's house doing a muck and gut or cleaning up their yards, those types of things.
And really, it's learning how to be compassionate. That's the biggest thing. And it is, the hardest part for the training that we had to do is when we had to talk about, and this was level 2 for us, the training we did, but you have to plan a funeral, and you have to talk about it. And learning to say, so-and-so died, and having to use the correct wording. Don't say they're no longer with us. Don't say this. Don't try to sugarcoat it, try to make it not as bad as it is. It's just, you got to say it. And that was hard for all of us in the room. We had pastors, we had healthcare professionals, and just, that was the hardest for all of us.
All right, let's take our break. Because we can talk till tomorrow. His health is really bad. Oh no, he doesn't do it anymore. He's got somebody else. But that online one was really strictly during COVID, so I don't know that they would do it anymore. Are you talking about my presentation? Are you talking about that? I've been skipping a lot of it. I'm on 76.
big thing.
Actually, I just got a real cool coin from Hurricane Helene response, because they really assisted out there. But
No, that's a good thing
that's
because-
really can be something that's helpful, because when we had to deal in Kerrville, man, they were struggling. I don't know what they do in crisis time, because, yeah.
That can go check on them.
And that's something that the church can do.
Stuff you brought up, I'm like, I already seen it. I need to pass on this.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no,
On
yeah, a
some
lot
of
of
the
it.
paperwork.
Yeah, yeah.
No, there's, see, and that's the thing, is for the church to take stock of their talents, their resources, and their contacts. And then you put all that together, and you say, where can we benefit the community? What's the community needs, and where can we tie that into what the community needs?
See, I was raised doing nonprofit stuff. My dad was salary before my brother, my oldest son, and then 8 years later, my youngest son. So I was involved in it as well growing up. Anyway, let's not. And then of course with Meals on Wheels, and I got my foot involved in that. And I just always, and this is a new community to me, because like I said, I came from Where y'all headed to?
Well, we're gonna spend the night in Tyler, but we have to go to Jefferson because the graduation is tomorrow.
I'm going to Texas as well, the 19th
Okay.
to visit my daughter-in-law, grandbaby, my granddaughter.
Oh, yeah.
I love all my grandkids. Couldn't go for more, but I saw her be born. I spent
yeah.
They just recently moved out of my house, and my granddaughter is getting married. So it's almost. So
No, we have our daughters over the and our granddaughter.
wow,
So they all live in the same house.
I'm used to it. I'm intimate at this point. Last week I was falling, especially when they're my age. And
I'm
thanking this
okay.
for Facebook.
We were empty nest for about 6 months after my dad passed.
And then
My
everybody
daughter
moved
went
in
to
with
live with
us.
my mom,
Well, see, I
and
haven't
then
moved in.
it's all.
Everybody moved
Yeah,
with us.
I've been living with my parents for a little over a year now.
But then you supposed to send, and I couldn't, I couldn't remember one of the things.
So you
I
went out.
moved into my parents. Yeah, I got set back up there. They all moved. Pedicure her back up there. So, but they just moved to East Texas, and I gotta go pick her up on the 19th. But she has an appointment here on the 21st because she's. They used to do it in August, so I changed all of it.
Yeah.
Donation operation.
Yeah.
You come back over here for.
I don't think. So, are you gonna change the slide thing?
Now y'all can look at this little bitty screen. I mean, some of it's nice, some of it's not. I mean, some of it's no big deal, but you know, to see some of the stuff is.
That's why I moved because I couldn't.
Oh yeah, from over there. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm a visual person. Oh yeah, there's the code. Hurry, 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 hurry. Don't change it yet. Let her get this code. The QR code.
I'm special. Y'all got.
There's always one in the group, isn't there?
That's me. I'm the one in this group.
That didn't.
Okay, good.
That didn't bring all the.
It's allowing me to.
It's just a bunch of lines. We're not going to know what that means. Well, it's supposed to be a chart. It's supposed to be a graph so you can see how the disasters have increased since over the years. Because obviously they're getting more, right? We're hearing about them more. Yeah, one went down, and I don't remember what year that was. Now I don't know if that's the one. Did it say national disasters? I don't remember what it said. One of them is for the world. One of his graphs is the world, and one of them is, for us, like the United States.
Now that's the one. They red flagged me. I was almost through. So what do I put there? The thing you said.
Yeah, you're gonna
But
say
they red flagged me.
you're doing that one and that one.
Okay.
There you go.
So I see, baby, get out now then, because it did flag me for that one, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, Jamaica's last year Saipan so far. Yeah, that's the big one we've had.
That signature is not very pretty.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. And then they keep talking about, there's going to be big hurricanes. I said, y'all been saying that for the last 10 years. I mean, I'm okay if we don't have one. Don't get me wrong. Good. But we went to a training in Galveston, the county. They were having to re-look at their hurricane evacuation process. And because it was so old, it was like from the 80s. And so I'm like, for real? And there's obviously a ton of more people that live in that area now. So they were doing a huge thing down there to figure out process and how they were gonna, get people out. Because even when they had Hurricane Harvey and trying to get everybody out of Houston, it was just still bumper to it was horrible, horrible.
Yeah, actually,
They had all the roads were coming this way. Yeah.
actually, we were at one of the emergency management things, and they were talking about
I just told him that Galveston.
how bad it is.
Yeah. For Galveston
I mean,
County or whatever it is.
How many days before they got to decide when they don't even know the hurricane's going to hit to evacuate because there's just too much traffic. And then when they tell everybody down in the trouble zone to evacuate, then everybody above that starts leaving first, and then it just piles up.
Oh.
That's how I know. And I got on the road to go further, and I'm like, wait, what? Why this blocked off?
Yeah. Bo had family there, and they were coming up to stay with us, and then they decided they went home.
Yeah.
They're like, this is ridiculous. I'm sitting here. They just went back home.
Yeah, you either stranded without gas.
Yeah,
or
they
you
just
stranded in the pollen.
They said we just went back home. Go ahead, babe. It's been.
All right, we're gonna.
Yeah. Well, and that you can really get, you can go and just Google it and say, what should I put in my bag? And it's going to give you the basics.
But the good thing about having it is when you can invite the community and be part of it as a group, like I said, or doing a first aid, CPR, AED class, those types of things, really getting the community kind of, hey, it costs obviously to have somebody come out and do the program, but if you sponsor, say, hey, if we do 50 people, what's that going to cost us? And then you announce the first 50 people that sign up get free, certification. It'll be, the
when
community
we
will
did
love it.
At this other church, they did it on a Sunday morning. And they didn't have as many people as they thought because where is most of the community at on Sunday morning? They're at church, right? But the individuals that we had from the community, and we did the church too, it was really good. I mean, it was like 2 hours. It was just a 2-hour training. And we did door prizes. We did the different stuff. But, if you make it a day and people can sign up, you could have CPR, first aid, you can have, because we stayed around and talked more with them, but then talking about what gets in your go bag. We had a guy that we did a training from. He had 3 tables like this of all of his stuff that
He
was
had
in
a
his
go
bag.
car
It was
because
crazy.
there was no way it was fitting in a bag.
I was like, what is he? And I was like, why does he have fishing line with bells? He said, what if I'm on the side that I'm evacuating and I'm down someplace that I'm not, comfortable? It's a perimeter he puts around his car. So if somebody comes up to his car, they're going to trip it. It'll ring those bells. I mean, just stuff I never would have thought about.
Yeah, he carried adult diapers for himself in the car.
Yeah,
So,
I did have in case
hey, to each his own. All right. Okay. Yeah, you know what you can do is y'all get together some snack foods and some bottles of water, and you go down there to that fire station. Now they don't want nothing that's like cooked in a casserole dish because they don't know who you are. But if you take some prepackaged snack foods up there with some water and start making that connection, a lot of things can happen. A lot of things can happen. So it really is establishing the connection somehow, and that's a start. Is to get out there, bring it to them, and say, hey, we were trying to figure out what we can do, if about doing something in our community and we're wanting to know if we can do a first aid CPR type class, ask them what their resource is and what that would cost and that stuff. And you never know where the conversation takes you. We were just with the city of Keene, working with them. The church there is doing an amazing project where they're trying to gather resources together for caregivers. Because, you know, when our parents start getting to that point when we got to do care or, you know, Parkinson's or these different things, that's very hard on the family. And they're putting together resources to help the caregivers, and it's really good. We had the fire department, the police department, because they're the ones that come in contact a lot with these families and be able to help all of that out. And so it's just an avenue in, and you never know what can spark from that conversation. So, DR volunteers, disaster response volunteers, these are the kind of the pledges that we're asking you to look at and be part of. That is to treat all people equally and deliver services without discrimination. Some of these things I shouldn't have to read. There's a reason why it's written. I hate to tell you that. Refrain from business or conduct that is unethical. I shouldn't tell you shouldn't do anything unethical, but I have to. We have to avoid engaging in illegal activities. It makes me sad that I have to have this on the list. Support Christian principles and the mission of ACS.
Did it work? Oh, you got to change the slide.
Well, he had to put it underneath, and so I don't know that it's picking it up. It made it now when I got out here. I'll just stand here, you change them. What is a declared disaster?
Oh, you missed the one about.
Oh,
the
then
mindful.
go back.
Yeah. So this is one that's important here. Be mindful of expenses and ensure that all donations are used for the purpose the donor intended. This is something that we might not think because I'm going to give you an example. When we were in the Panhandle Fires, an organization called Operation
Maybe
Blessings,
unplug that cable
they
and try to plug it back
donated
in.
a truckload of wheelbarrows, trash cans, trash bags, sifters, shovels, you know, everything that people could use for their cleanup. And they wanted it all to stay as a kit. Okay? So when they tell you they're donating it and they want it as a kit, that doesn't mean you can go give you a wheelbarrow out of that kit. I have to give you that whole kit because that's what they're expected of you. That's what they're asking it to be as a kit. And we had a lot of people like, all I need is a wheelbarrow. Well, then you need to go someplace else. And I couldn't give it to them. So that's what I'm talking about. Or if somebody's gave you a cash. We had a lot of people in those fires too. They weren't able to come and volunteer. They'd come up and give me Walmart gift cards. Just give them to anybody who is needing something that you don't have. So I didn't say, oh, hey, I have Walmart gift cards now. When the people were checking out, we would just say, were you able to find everything? You know, was there something that you really needed that you couldn't? And if they said, oh, yes, I needed whatever, then we would give them that gift card. So things like that. You need to make sure that it's being utilized for what the donation was, the donor intended it to be. Of course, Bo talked about things unethical, illegal, Christian principles, but that's a big thing about the donations. Now, if somebody gives you something that, we had somebody give us a donation of a bunch of quilts. They were lap quilts, beautiful lap quilts from Oklahoma for when we were in the Panhandle Fires. Well, we put them out on the table. Well, what do you think people were doing? Because they were going to sell them.
There was going on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. And so we had to say, oh, okay. Now, they didn't give us any stipulations when they gave them to us. But we decided, when we talked with the individuals there, that we gave them to the families. They could have one, for the family.
Actually, the mayor was in there volunteering
Oh, yeah.
when some ladies were taking 6 and 7 apiece.
Yeah, and so the mayor was upset.
And
So
she,
we, the church, one of the churches there was going to be doing a benefit thing for the families. And so when we closed down, because we were a couple days from actually closing down part of the donations thing, we gave them to that church so that they could auction them off, and the proceeds were going to the families. See what I'm saying? So because they didn't put us a stipulation on how they were to be used, but we had to make a decision, of the product. So
yeah, since we were shutting down in a couple days, that was the best thing that we found that we could do. So, a declared disaster. Yes. Let's not say nothing. This is the house of the Lord. Mhm. Yes. Right.
correct.
Right. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. What we call is a multi-agency warehouse. That means all the agencies are putting all their stuff together in one place, and one organization actually organizes and takes care of that. There are times that warehouse the public doesn't see, and that stuff gets sent from that warehouse to distribution sites all over the area. So Hurricane Harvey, it's the easiest one. That warehouse wasn't even near Houston. It was in San Antonio. Okay, there was distribution sites all through Houston area, but the main facility was actually in San Antonio because they could not find anything big enough to contain all the donations that they were going to get. So ACS was asked by FEMA to run that particular warehouse. So sometimes the public doesn't come to it. Sometimes it's all in one location. So a lot of the things that we've had to do is all in one location. So we take the donations in from whatever organizations bring it, because we're the donations management for that particular disaster. And then from there, we're organizing it inside that same space so that they can come and shop. But no other way. For the Panhandle fires, another organization had been named the donations management, and I don't think we were there for 2 hours with our mobile unit, and one of the state representatives came and asked me to basically take it over. She said, "Hey, can you come with me to the donation site? I need you to see something." Sure. Went over there. I had about a minute and a half. She said, "Look around. I'm going to go ask some questions." About a minute and a half later, she comes back. She said, "What do you think?" I said, "What do I think about what?" She said, "Are you willing to take it over?" I said, "If that's what you need me to do, yes, that's what we can do." So we left from there and went to the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, and she announced to them that we were going to be taking over donations. So the next day, it was our operation. The issue is people don't know what they're doing. And they're willing, and I don't fault the organization. They said, yeah, we'll do it, but they just didn't know. When we got there, food was randomly everywhere. It was all in one space, but it wasn't organized. There was stuff on the floor. Next to it was the chemicals. So if something happened, you know, your food's ruined. Dog food and baby food were together.
Not
It
on the
was,
same table, but next to each other.
it was very, very random. And it was a young lady. She was in her 20s. And when they told her that we were taking over, she was so heartbroken. Well, what did I do wrong? And I'm just like, maybe you just didn't know. I mean, what we think about, what we do is, you know, you're in a Walmart. Is anything on the floor? Okay. Chemicals, we don't want that next to the food. In case something gets spilt, then you're losing your food. And so I kind of went over some things with her and just, look, her organization was search and rescue.
Now, don't ask me to do search and rescue because I wouldn't know.
And I told her, I said, you don't understand this, just like you don't want me on a horse going out there and trying to find what you're trying to do. I don't understand your role, and you don't understand mine. That's why we have different roles. And it's okay. So, well, she got deployed somewhere else. But the whole thing is understanding what your role is in a disaster and trying to figure out how you fit in. And sometimes you're asked to do things that you don't necessarily do, but you do it.
And now, what you were saying, asking about the difference in the warehousing and things like that, if we would got something, if we're strictly just doing warehousing, we're not touching the public, okay? But we still get somebody that donated something with stipulations. Whenever it goes out to the distribution sites, it's going with those stipulations. You know, so now once it leaves my facility and goes to that distribution site, and if she decides, even though I tell her this is how it's supposed to be used, if she makes that decision, it's on her. But, you know, it just needs to be respectful of when donations come in, what they're used for.
Yeah, sometimes you have donations of, you know, a couple $1,000 generator, and so they want to make sure they go to the right locations, and so you have to, you know, and that's an expensive product, but sometimes, you know, they put weird stipulations on donations because this is how they want it handled. That's what they wanted to do. That's how you handle it. Donations that are given to ACS, we're still paying for Hurricane Harvey stuff. Why?
Paying.
Because, I mean, not paying, we're getting donations for it, and we have to find a way to spend that. How do we do that?
People give us money for it still.
Yeah.
Somebody has it on their tithe envelope that says Hurricane Harvey.
And
So people still donate
so we have to give it to our churches that were affected
by Harvey.
There's just lots of earmarks that are on our tithe envelopes everywhere, and so we have to respect what they are giving it, and so we have to be creative sometimes, but make sure that it is the donor's intent.
Yeah.
American Red Cross, they can tell you what they want it to go to, or that it's going to go to what you're asking, but once it hits their pot, it's however they want to use it. It's just a big slush fund, if you will. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if you give it to the general fund, we're going to use it for whatever. But if it comes to us for buckets, then we're going to buy the supplies if we need to fill the buckets. And then the in-gathering, that's the reversion stuff, right?
Yeah, and then there's another one that's the NAD one that is, what's the phrase for that? Hope for Humanity. And those are the two in-gathering type of donations that go out. The in-gathering, Texas ACS in-gathering, I want to say 45% of that actually comes back to you for your community service projects. Hope for Humanity is the NAD
Is the
one,
NAD.
and I believe that comes back with like 25% comes back here.
Yeah.
But you have to apply for it, you know.
Well,
There's a
If
reversion.
you get to it, yeah. We send out a letter every year that goes to your treasurer, your ACS director, if you have one, that says you have to fill out these 2 forms to tell us what you do for community service projects, okay? And then it says, you know, you would, if you got money back, would you use it 100% for that, or, you know, whatever? And I forget all the questions that are on there. And then if you give to it, you're going to get back a percentage of those dollars that your church has put into those funds. Does that make sense?
So you're kind of giving it to yourself, but at the same time, a portion of it goes forward to either the division or us.
Yeah,
Just Texas ACS.
yeah, Texas ACS, and that
And,
goes.
and
we
like
use it
she
across the
announced,
board.
community services would completely stay in this church for whatever projects you have, but Texas ACS would come to me. And then Hope for Humanity would go to the North American Division.
Mm-hmm. The bullet.
Right. I couldn't see it. It was small.
Yeah.
Hope for Humanity donated and
That goes to the NAD. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so like if you go out to organizations and you ask businesses around here if they'll donate for your in-gathering fund, that would be your solicited line item. That was what my grandfather loved to do. He would always go out and get all the big donations from the businesses many, many years ago.
Yeah. We used to stand up with our little cup that had a little slot in it that used.
How many in-gatherers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how many Jasper Wayne Award winners? You had to stand out there a lot to get that.
You did. You did.
But
Okay.
declared disasters. This is a disaster that the government decides. So it's going to start with the city. And the city's going to say, I can't handle this. This is a disaster. Hey, we're going to need some help from the county. And then the county's like, hey, this is actually bigger than what we can do. They're going to declare it a disaster as well. And then they're going to ask the state. And then if the state deems that this is too big for us as well, then they're going to declare, obviously a disaster before that, but they're going to declare and ask for the federal government. And then that's when we come into the presidentially declared disasters. So, no, I can't change it. That's okay. So, major disasters that happened from 1953 to 2013. In 1953, I believe there was only 6 major disasters in the United States that were listed. In 20,
That's what, babe. You can't see it, but
yeah, because the
Yeah.
chart didn't show up on there.
when it converted over.
Let me, here, you can talk. Let me pull up my laptop because I got the notes on it.
What am I going to talk about? The lines on the paper.
The lines on the paper.
Yeah, 1953 is all the way to here. This is the first dot, 1953. Well, but it should have a white background. Here, let me see that.
That's okay. They can't read the dates.
This is what it's supposed to look like. I mean, you can't see the dates, I know, I understand, but there should be a white background. But and this is just that's just the end of the graph, that's just how it showed up, but in the end of this graph, because, you know, it's funny, you can't find some of these anymore. 2013 was a Sandy, oh no, that's a different act. It was the Hurricane Sandy Recovery and Improvement Act that happened in 2013. Then 2000, does anybody remember what happened in 2006? Oh, was it 5? When's Katrina? Was Katrina 5 or 6? Because the act, the post-Hurricane Katrina Emergency Act was in 2006, which is this right here. Did you find it?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
So you can see that it's going up and down for the different years of, and then these are major U.S. disasters. Now, when we're saying disasters, these are declared disasters, not because Minnesota had an ice storm, because Minnesota's used to having ice storms, right? It would be declared a disaster for if it was, catastrophic kind of thing. But if it's just, their norm, it's not declared a disaster. It's not going to show up, obviously, on this graph.
Can you go to the next slide? This is global natural disasters.
You can see
Yeah,
nothing.
you can't see nothing on that. Okay, that's okay. In 1906, this is the 6 that I was thinking about. There were six global natural disasters that they declared back then. And how many can you guess would have happened in, let's see, I think that's 2017. Let me. In 2005, we had 467 global recorded natural disasters. If you actually got to see the chart, you can see that it's just a constant uphill. I mean, there's little dips down. It's like the stock market, but it's continually going up. It's the labor pains, if you will, of this earth. The Lord is coming soon, very soon. So there are different ways that we go. It's a couple slides up. The activation is based on the size of the disaster. So
Yeah, right there.
if there are basically 10 homes that are affected, we really expect the local church to really take care of those families. Not that we're not going to help, but that's not when I'm going to deploy and respond as a conference. And if there's 11 to 50 families, we expect that you're going to get together with your area churches and work on that as those families as well. But then when it gets beyond that, that's when we know that we have to be there and responding to be part of that. Now, at any of these times, Pastor Ford can call and say that he needs some help. Okay, I'm not saying I won't help in any of those times. This is just a generalization of what our plans are, that we are going to be on site and facilitating. And then when it has 100 families or more, that's when our division will look at making sure that they are part of it. Even though they'll be part of it during any of our other responses, they know that that's one of the main things that they will have to be more engaged with. So we are working for a Central Texas coordinator. Actually, we're working on a pilot program with the division right now on young adults. Linda Young, what's her last name? Linda, Scenic Hills. Scott. That's her husband's name, Scott. Linda.
Should be
Yeah.
San Antonio, not this area. This
Yeah,
is
but it's in
Austin.
the area corner. Central Texas. And that's all of Central Texas. anyway, I've got a couple youth that are young adults that we're going to be engaging with the area so that we can start finding better avenues of connecting our youth with community service and disaster response. Now, some of those did come out. She helped us out at Kerrville, and actually her and her husband came out to Jamaica with us. So we are trying to work on that. I'll get you a number, but yes, there are things that we need to organize. And you know how it is trying to get some people to do some stuff in the church.
Everybody's looking the other direction.
Volunteers are hard to find. They are hard to find. You know, everybody wants to say, well, why isn't the church doing nothing? But they don't want to stick their hand up when it's time to do something. They want to complain about it, but they don't want to be the one in the position. That's really, I mean, when Joe and Sherry left 10 years ago, I guess, our disaster response was their main focus, and there wasn't a lot of community services. The day Harvey hit was the first day on the job for Marshall and Julie, and they were the previous coordinators before us, or directors, and so they took over the warehouse for Hurricane Harvey, and they really started getting into community services, and our connections with the disaster response side began to lower. So we're really having to put ourselves back in that community of disaster response. And so we've lost those coordinators, we've lost those contacts. COVID really took a lot of the emergency people out, and not killed them, but they were at retirement, and they were like, I don't want to mess with this. This is too much. And so they left their positions, and so the new people didn't have a relationship with ACS, and so we're struggling with that. Okay. I'm talking about emergency managers for all the cities. All the cities, all the counties, they all decided they don't want to mess with it. They're getting too old. They're going to retire. And so we lost a lot of the contacts that we had with all the cities and counties. And so it's been a struggle to try to get back into that community, if you will. Calls to our state VAL, Volunteer Agency Liaison, is the only way we're getting into places is, hey, you're not calling me. I need to be there. And so those are the conversations that we have to have. Who and what is affected during disasters? Yeah, everybody. The infrastructure is messed up. Government leaders are pushed to the nth. Some disappear, you know. Some are on flights to Acapulco. Our emergency leaders in Kerrville, they were not there. They were gone. They weren't answering phones. When we were there doing the warehouse, we never saw the emergency management. They never came and saw us. They had a different idea of what they were doing. So they're stretched beyond, and some of them got the position because they wanted a position, but they don't. But when it's time to act, oh boy, this is complicated stuff, people. It is a struggle. Social services, man, all that they have to deal with. Our educational institutions, sometimes those are shut down. Our schools are shut down, and they're having to use those for shelters and things like that. Emergency services, all of these things are just overwhelmed. Families, church members, pastors. You talked about David Reynolds getting a bunch of phone calls because we lost our president. You imagine when a disaster happens, what these people have to go through. The next slide, every disaster response, the disaster begins and ends locally. So we were working the Panhandle fires, and I was at one of the meetings, and the state was trying to tell them what to do. And the local people were like, no. This is ours. Remember, every disaster begins and ends locally. And they say, well, but you need to do this. And they say, well, if you want to do that, you can do all of it. Because it's our territory, but if you're going to take it over, you can take it over. And they don't want to do that because they don't have the resources either. The state uses people like us to deal with problems. During the Snowmageddon, whatever, Freeze-mageddon, the state realized that the church was their only avenue, or nonprofits, was their only avenue to get out to these people. Especially in our area, the city of Arlington was begging our church there for any way that they could get out to their people, because we were already delivering food and they needed information to get out. And the city had no way of doing it, but our church was already active and moving and doing. And so that's where they're realizing, hey, these guys are doing more than what we thought. And so that gives us an avenue. They can come to rely on us to do things. This last little thing, conference, HCSDA coordinator, whatever. We just want to be notified. So, like I said, if your church is active because you've got something happening, then if I know about it when I'm on those calls, I can already say, we're doing this. If your church is active, I don't know how many calls I get. Hey, we're in such and such area. Is there any kind of food pantry? We run into somebody that's having a problem. Can you give me the number of the local church and what we can do? And when are they open? And this and that. You know, we just moved to an area, whatever it is. If I have that information from the church, I can relay that on to those people as we're doing it. Oh yeah, I got a food pantry about 10 minutes from where you're at. They're open every Wednesday every week from 3 to 5. And then that gives them an opportunity to be ministered to. The next slide is a myth. What are the myths of disaster response? Myth number 1, volunteer agencies should be able to address all of the needs of disaster survivors following a disaster. Myth number 2, the government agencies should be able to provide all the needs of the disaster survivors. That's why it's called a myth. The reality, volunteer agencies working alone cannot be expected to meet all those needs, but when we collaborate together with other entities, whether it be governmental, local, state, local businesses, other churches in the area, our chances are much better that we're actually going to be able to provide more of what they need. So that's where that cooperation and collaboration come in. Again, it's better to do it before it happens. Emergency response, phases. So we have different phases. Immediately following the disaster, that initial part, we're just trying to make life-sustaining things, which would be food, shelter, and oh my goodness, food, water, shelter. Typically, that's first 10 days. Doesn't mean that that's true. Sometimes it's clothing. It's getting those basic needs, those things that they have to have right away. Bedding can be part of the sheltering. The hard thing that we have, I can tell you, our big mobile truck, when we took it out to Kerrville, that got more responses on Facebook. I could divide that by about 1,000, and that's how many people showed up to our truck. Not many people. They want to pick out their clothes off a rack. They don't want me to hand it to them anymore. It's getting very. I can tell you, I could take that same truck to Jamaica, and they would have took everything off my truck. Whether I wanted to them or not. Look, it's a different. We lived so much differently. When we were there, it was just amazing what they were going through and how they were living, and yes, gratitude. If we could take our kids over there to spend a couple weeks to see how they live, it might change how they perceive things here, because we are so spoiled is a nice way to put it. But when we get into the recovery phase of disasters, it's where you're beginning to try to get them into normal phases of living. We have, on the last slide, yeah, it just says first 10 days after the disaster. From so you know, all disasters are different. I mean, they go in so many different. How long you're in a phase. Short term, it can be a couple weeks. Long-term recovery, my slide says up to a year, but it's generally the or more part. Communities take a long time to recover. Look at Kerrville. They're still just in litigation over everything. There's still so many houses that need to be taken care of. The camps are struggling. I spoke with a Mennonite disaster response gentleman, and he told me however many weeks that initial recovery is how many years that they end up staying in a community to try to rebuild. That's a long time. So there are some things that we just don't understand on how long until it hits us. And that's why we got to keep our communities in prayer. We always move on, just like the donations, to the next disaster. So Hurricane Helene, when that one, and what was the other one, Gilbert, that went through right after, Milton. As those things were dying down in the news media, you know, something over happens in LA, and guess what? All those donations get transferred from there to here. So a lot of times we have to act quick enough to make sure that we get the donations that we can to help our communities that we can, and that's why sometimes it feels a little greedy. to ask for all that. National Command Center, that may be activated. That is our North American division, so that would be them doing that, typically with over 100 families that are affected. And we'll work closely with them. Services that are provided, we've talked about this before. It doesn't matter race, color, language, age, religion, economic status, or gender. We are going to serve. The next one is the difficult one that we have a lot of problems with as a church. We think the best time to connect someone with God is during a disaster. Okay, these people are fragile. And so to take advantage of them during such a difficult time, and I'm not saying that we can't talk about God. We have to be careful during this time. Right at this moment, they don't believe that sometimes there is a God. How could he let this happen to my kids at this camp? That's a major struggle. It's a major struggle. Do you know the phone calls that our churches was getting during that? Yeah. Conservative, Christian, you got hammered. You deserved everything you got. If you're a conservative and you were a Christian, they assumed you were a Trump supporter. And the hate calls that our churches were receiving down there was incredible. And those kids' lives meant nothing. And so we've got to be careful what we put in the hands of God at that, or say it's God's fault or however. Services that we provide the centers, the community collection centers, which can be an area like this. Emergency distribution centers can be any size, really. Mobile distribution, sometimes we have to take those into pickup trucks and get out to where they go. When we were out there in the Paris tornadoes, we were slightly east of that, and we had a lawn company that was helping us. When we showed up with our mobile unit, the people were worried about their houses, trying to clean up and everything. They weren't coming to get supplies. So this lawn care company was coming and picking up food for them and getting supplies from us and driving them out to the location. We have other church members that fill their pickup and drive out and take supplies. So sometimes you have to use a smaller vehicle to do things. Emotional, spiritual care, we talked about. The next slide talks about Sabbath operations. I already talked to you about why we do it on the Sabbath. Unfortunately, some people don't believe that this is something we should do. The church that we talked about in Sabbath this morning, the church that serves under the bridge, that church really put them out, their own church, because they weren't worshiping with them anymore. They were out working on the Sabbath. That's how they looked at it. Our members can be such beautiful people. Beautiful. But, we're there to serve, and it doesn't matter what day it is. There are a couple different phases, the emergency phase, the recovery phase, and there's just different people that work in those phases. We talked a little bit about that earlier. Deborah talked about fire, police. ACS can be involved there if we're there with our mobile distribution unit. but we always have to make sure that it's safe for us to enter. Kerrville was one of those things when I was talking with the state, asking them about bringing out our distribution truck. They had to allow us a location to park it, and I had to work with them before we could drive it out and be there because there was so many people responding. And rains kept coming. They kept kicking volunteers out of the river because we kept getting more and more rain. Goodness. I don't know. We're on to 101 now. Yeah, slide 101. We get to talking these stories, and I think the stories have a lot of heart to them to explain why we have to do some of the things that we do. So this is kind of the when we were talking earlier and you were asking about the distribution centers. This area, the multi-agency warehouse, that was basically like what I said was in San Antonio. And then the distribution sites were all through Houston. So items are collected either by individuals or corporations into collection centers, or they're brought directly to the multi-agency warehouse, which is then distributed out, and then it goes to survivors. And that's going to be on your test. And if you haven't realized it, the test is in the back of your book. You could be following along and answering it. All right. Donations. The next slide. This is one of the important things. So we get a lot of stuff at donations for donations, and stuff means surplus, trash, useless to frantic folk. So what happens in a disaster? You hear somebody needs something, and what do? You run to your closet and you find everything you don't want, and you throw it in a trash bag where it belongs. 102. There you go. Useless to frantic folk. So a lot of the things that we see at disasters are either garage sale items for 10 cents, because they still have the stickers on them. If you couldn't sell it for 10 cents, nobody wanted it. The next slide shows you a picture of what the disaster turns into. That, unfortunately, is one of those sites that a disaster site gets overwhelmed. They can't do anything with it. The storage facility isn't big enough. It sits out. Guess what? It's going to rain again, and then it all becomes trash. But we can't throw it away. We can't, not. Do you know what would happen in the news media if they saw you throwing all that away? See, we have to be careful. We have to be careful of how things are discarded. And sometimes we have to have a state letter telling us it's okay to dispose of certain things. So it can get complicated. It's not as simple as just, it's not any good anymore. Let's throw it away. The next slide is the difference between stuff that gets donated and what we need is goods. So the surplus, trash, useless to frantic folk turns into gleanings out of donated stuff. So we need goods. And that's where our volunteers come along, and sometimes we have to wear gloves, aprons, masks, because you don't know what you're opening up when you get a big black bag of donations. Yeah, it is so sad, some of the stuff that you get, and you can't believe that people think that that is something that somebody, look, they want to pat themselves on the back and say they did a good job by donating it, but they know it's trash. But they want to feel good about getting rid of it, is really what it is. Deborah talked about this earlier, collecting and stuff. Know what to collect. So during a disaster, if you're looking for something to help, pull together, make sure you're listening to what the official people are saying. So you're not collecting just stuff that you think people might need. Listen to what their actual needs are.
Well, and I was going to say, when we were in the Panhandle fires, most of the people I said earlier affected were older people. You know how many baby diapers I got? Food, formula. It was crazy because people just were donating whatever. And I didn't have control over what donations were coming in, what they were putting out. That was somebody else. But we finally told them, please tell them we don't need these items. And so, because then you have to figure out how to, I don't want to say get rid of them, but get them out to other organizations so they can be used by people who need them, right? Yeah, it's more work. So it's knowing, that's like the stuff in Kerrville, because people heard that kids were involved. Well, those kids didn't live there. They were at summer camp, So here's another thing we got, baby diapers. So not that there wasn't a few families that were affected that had been living in the RVs and things, but so it's just knowing what you need to collect. That's very important.
Yeah. And so you put a burden on somebody else because you're sending them stuff they don't need, and now they have to find a way to get rid of it. If you're deciding to do something to give, you got to remember, if it's cold outside, they probably don't need shorts donated. Again, if you're delivering something to Arizona and it's in the middle of summer, they probably don't need your winter clothes. So what we generally ask is and this is for you to use boxes. If you're going to end up doing donations and stuff, use the same size of box. Don't make it too big. You want to use a uniform size box. You want to be able to pick them up, but at the same time, it makes it easier to stack and to place and do things, especially if you're putting it on a pallet to ship somewhere.
And this is after you've collected it and you've sorted it. You want to make sure sorting it into those size boxes.
So as you sort stuff, say you've got a bunch of clothes, we'd love to see that it was sorted by men's and women's and boys and girls, largest sizes on the bottom, and work your way up. If you got so much of one size, then that's great. It fills the box. Okay.
And socks and underwear must be new.
Do you understand that people donate used socks and underwear and bras? What were they thinking? Yes, it shows up. Use common sense, I think. This picture here, sorting goods. Oh, he already changed it. This is what I was talking about in the Panhandle, how bad it was. It was so unorganized, and Deborah had a lady that took care of it, and wow, it turned out to be such a difference. The people. No, this is an older one.
This is an old picture.
But this is what ended up happening is it was just a bunch of random stuff. I don't care if it was beans, soup, vegetables. It was all just on one table, and people had to try to find it. And
I was going to say, you want it to be organized so when they come in, they're not having to dig through things. They need corn, they can go to the corn and get corn. They want, they're already struggling and whatever. They don't want to have waste time to look for it.
yeah, some of those clients that came back after we took over.
Yeah, because the lady who had been volunteering there, she wanted to do it, but the young lady said, no, let's just put the food out on the tables, because she didn't understand. And so when we took over, the lady came to me and said, please, can I sort it? I said, absolutely. And within 30 minutes, she had 10 volunteers over there with her and had it all sorted out. And then they were actually putting, this whole table was half corn, half green beans, but these were Del Monte green beans. This was whatever green beans. So you were able to then look at it that way. The same thing with the formula and the baby food. That was one of the things, I did. Because on formula, you have to make sure that it's not expired. So what we do is we take a marker and we write on the top of it so you can see really quickly what the expiration date is, so you can get it out there. And when we went in daily, there was stuff that, I was like, this stuff's gonna expire, we need to get it out. So sorting your goods and making sure, even your hygiene products, you wanna make sure that you're not putting bulk items out there. That was another thing, that we had bulk items. Somebody go to Sam's and they would buy the package of 10 toothpaste. Well, break that package up, because you don't need 10 tubes of toothpaste unless you're.
But somebody will take it if it's sitting on the table.
What we found out in the Panhandle fires was so bad. People were getting these bulk items because that's how they were put out originally, and they were selling them on Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. So you want to break it up, and you don't have to put all your stuff out there either when you're sorting and placing things out there. If you're able to store a little bit under the table or, in a back room, and then you just come back and replenish it, so people then don't walk in and are overwhelmed because there's so much there. So it depends on how much space that you have.
So when you're working with food, I don't know if any of you've actually been to a food bank, and the dates on a can is not its expiration date. It's its best buy date. We typically look through them, and if it's a couple years old, obviously it needs to go. But the biggest things that they want you to look at is if it's dented with sharp creases. So if metal's touching metal, it's got to go. Cans or boxes or whatever that doesn't have a label, you don't know what's in it, you don't need to give it out.
It's surprise supper.
No. And one of the hard things that people just don't understand, and we can't take repackaged items. So if you buy a 50-pound bag of rice and you put it in a bunch of Ziploc bags, and I can't give that out. We just don't know what all is in there. Home canned foods or things like that, it's just not something that we can use.
And another thing we had, and this what we've seen a lot in the last couple years, is people, because a lot of people are making their own soaps, laundry detergent, doing that kind of stuff. If it does not have the list of ingredients, you cannot give it out. Because you don't want somebody to take that and they're allergic to it, and then they come back, because they're not going to look for what they're going to look. Oh, this is Adventist Community Services, that Adventist church, I'm going to sue them. So what we have done is, we have, in a couple of the places, we had a table that was my trash table that was outside on the back. If you chose to go to that table and take that, because I'm waiting for it to go, then that's on you. It's not on my main floor where I have it. We had a lady that dropped off a bunch, and we didn't know it was baggies of laundry soap that she had done. And so because we couldn't put it out, I put some out there, and then I actually took a bag because we needed to do laundry, and did it myself. So that's why you can't do those items. You need to make sure that, and if somebody tries to donate it, just say, oh, can you, put a list of ingredients on there, just so that way people know. Yes, ma'am. It depends on the rules of your city, because, and you need to find that out, because like in Fort Worth, you cannot come out and provide food unless you have a food handler's license.
Well, you have to have a permit to do it. It's
Yeah,
got to, you got to show that it was cooked in a commercial kitchen.
That has been approved, because of what happened was several homeless had passed away because of something they had eaten that was given to them.
Yeah.
So they had to make that between Fort Worth and Arlington, that you have to have their stipulations for if you are going to be passing out food.
It either has to be prepackaged or proven that it was cooked in a approved site.
Correct. Like if you're taking them what's it called? Lunchable, just saying Lunchable, you can pass those out because they're sealed or whatever. Or you buy a bunch of sandwiches that are already sealed. That's fine, because you didn't seal them. It's, got a brand name on it. It was done that way. Yes, you can do it that way. Yeah. And it's a good thing when you're packaging things. This is something, don't write on the box. Tape a piece of paper to it that says whatever's in it. Men's shirt size large. Tape it to that box, because then it's easy to take off that piece of paper and tape another one on. But when you get a box that's got this scribbled out, this scribbled out, this scribbled out, or it's not scribbled out, and then you're trying to figure out what's in the box. So make sure that when you're labeling things, that you actually label it with a piece of paper and tape it. Don't write on the box. That's a big thing. And we've already talked about packing the clothes by what the item is, the size, the gender. It's important to wear gloves.
I'm trying to see where we can.
Yeah.
Time is going. Yes.
Yeah.
That's not a
A lot
particular
of times
size.
like when we took on this, Home Depot had done their medium-sized box.
It's like 18 by 18
Yeah.
by 18.
That's about the size you're gonna get donated. If somebody wants to donate, if you're happy to do something and somebody donates it, you need to ask them what size, because I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah. I've got a bunch of
boxes.
Amazon boxes. I can fit 2 of them books in.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, I'm never gonna use them. And trying to find somebody that can use them for something, a school or whatever, we've been trying to get rid of them. You can't. So ask questions. If somebody's wanting it, if you're happening
Not
to-
all donations are okay to accept.
Yeah.
It's okay to
It's
say
okay
no.
to refuse them. If somebody's calling you, you tell them, send me what you're getting. And then when it delivers, before it even comes off the vehicle, you ask them for
A bill of
a
lading.
bill of lading and see what's there, okay? Because that's a fun way people like to give you junk, give you stuff.
It's because I haven't talked about it
Oh.
yet. Yes, so I kind of talked about it a little bit. The distribution centers. Okay, so remember I talked about San Antonio was the multi-agency warehouse, but the distribution centers were there locally in the disaster site. Right. Which question are you looking for? 10. Let's look at 10. C. Yes. C, that's in 2 languages. The letter C and C. Oh. All right. No, we're in Texas, not Tennessee. So the warehouses, I know y'all, we haven't discussed it yet, but number 6, warehouses are crazy. When they first start, it can be 24 hours a day. It can be 7 days a week. and then you find out what the actual needs are. When we did the Panhandle fires, it changed. There was an initial schedule, and then we realized people came before work and after work, and not a lot of people showed up in the middle. So we wanted to make sure we opened up early enough to where they could get there before they went to work, and we stayed open up late enough for them to come after work. And we received a lot of thank yous for that. So we didn't have a lot of volunteers there in between, other than them doing some of the extra sorting and things like that. It can be any time according to whatever the needs are of the community. All right, so number 11. I see where this is going. The minimum age of someone working in a location where forklifts are operated. Okay, you're just in an area where there is a forklift working. You're not operating the forklift. Okay. Yeah. So 18 years old. I sure hope that's right. Now, what we do in the event that we have younger people around is we have a designated portion of the warehouse where the forklifts can't even go around, and so we allow them to work there. What's the requirement for a forklift operator? Well, when in doubt, always pick the longest answer. It is on this test. So they've got to be at least 21 years old and authorized. Just because you have a forklift license at your job doesn't mean that I'm going to let you drive a forklift at my facility. So I've got to verify that you're capable and know what you're talking about. 13, it talks about accurate records. Okay, there's a reason why we have to have accurate records. If something happens at my warehouse and I don't know who is volunteering that day, yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because there has been times that volunteers didn't come in and they got hurt doing something wherever they were, and they claim that they got hurt in the building. So if you don't have them clock in and clock out, right in, right out, it can become a problem. There's another thing. I'm not going by the slides, so you can not worry about that. The thing that I'll just tell you, Colorado, I was just speaking with their state emergency management a couple weeks ago when we had a VOAD convention, and ACS helped them recoup, I want to say $4 million because they collected volunteer time and they used a program where they knew exactly the items that were donated and given out. So, how did that work? You often hear that FEMA gives out X portion of money. So FEMA typically was 75% of the funds that the city, county, or whatever, the state put toward a disaster, 75% of that they would reimburse. But there's 25% that's not. Okay, so they've got to figure out what that cost is. Well, that 25%, if we do our job diligently, we can cover that 25%. So in-kind donations, if we keep track of it, they can put that toward that 25%. Volunteer hours, if we track it, they can put that toward that 25%. So it is very important for us to keep track of all that information so that at the end of the disaster, when I turn it into the state or to the city, they can say, this is what was donated to us, either by hours or by in-kind donations. Now, just to let you know, the volunteer hours that they say in the state of Texas, I believe it is now for a base volunteer, somebody that has no experience doing whatever they're doing, $33 an hour is what FEMA says it's worth. Management, I think, is somewhere around $70 an hour. So if you say exactly what your volunteers are doing, so a heavy equipment operator, he's going to be in that higher realm. If you have doctors and nurses, they're going to be in a higher bracket. So if you have exactly what everybody is volunteering and how many hours they're putting in, it adds up fast. And then your city doesn't have to really recoup any of that. Because if you don't help them with that 25%, guess what happens? Your taxes go up. They got to pay for it somehow. But if we help them do it right, then our records should be important enough that specific people should be assigned to keep them. Because we don't need them in triplicate. We got them in the cloud now. All right. Sabbath hours. Look, when we're working, we talked about this earlier. We're going to serve you no matter what you are. Okay? And I'm going to do the same if you're volunteering for me. So if you work on the Sabbath and you need the Sabbath off, if I have other volunteers there that can help, then we'll let you. If I have another, and I say let you, I can't stop you, but I can say, yeah, we can allow you to do that. That would be fine. Just like if we have some Sunday keepers, I'm going to try to allow that to have their time to worship if they so choose. So we're going to give everybody the opportunity to do that if they want to. Number 15 talks about the National Response Framework. That's that NRF. That is a program that the government has put into place that it works well within small events all the way to large. It scales beautifully. Somewhere in this book it talks about the FEMA classes, and they are back online now. So you can do some independent study on the FEMA classes, 100, 233, I think 800, maybe 700. Those classes help you understand all those acronyms that these people all talk about. And let me tell you, when you get into a disaster, they're going to use all those acronyms, and you're going to be lost if you don't know them. The lady we turned Kerrville over to, she came in one day and said, they're saying all these letters. I don't know what they mean. And so I had to sit there and go over it with her so that she could understand what they were talking about in the meetings. So having those classes, and if you would take those classes, you'll benefit a lot from them. And so in that National Response Framework, ACS falls into the category where we work with this incident command system. It allows us to flow right underneath one of these operations that are going on. It doesn't change how we operate, it just allows us to plug in. Let's see. Spiritual Foundation for Service says, yeah, we're going to help those that help themselves. My favorite answer is D, but we really are to minister to the hungry, the thirsty, sick, naked. Yeah, so 15's B. 15 would be B. And 16 would be C. 17, who should address all of the needs of the survivors? Remember I talked about that? Everybody collaborating together. Which one? For number 17, it would be, oh, what it says, address all the needs? Yeah. Well, I didn't write the questions. Trust me, I want this manual changed up so bad. And this slideshow is 1970, feels like. The answer is D. We should address most of the needs of the survivor. Not all of them is what he's trying to say. Because at no point are you going, well, you can address needs, but then there's a lot of wants. 18, HCSDR has a special relationship with what organization for processing? I didn't talk about that. This is actually coming back. No, so this is the last answer, AIM. Adventist Information Ministry, that is actually coming back. If you watch the NAD year-end meetings, they are working very hard to get that program back up and running. It's basically a location that you can call to see how you can help. So instead of calling the Texas Conference and asking questions on a disaster in Texas, you could actually call AIM, and AIM can give you the information that you need as a national directory. You should know 19. I shouldn't have to go through that. We've talked about 20 several times. And I believe the number for AIM is somewhere in that manual if you need extra credit to pass. ACSDR deploys in the United States and Bermuda. ADRA deploys. And again, even that's totally not right. It's United States, Bermuda, Guam, Micronesian Islands. The interesting thing about ADRA is they actually are, ACS and DR work simultaneously in Canada. ADRA, they like to advertise that they do. No, they are international. They are everything outside of the North American Division territories. Well, I can tell you Jamaica is not under ACS. They are part of ADRA. But the program that Jamaica uses is Adventist Community Services as they minister to to the island. ACS is well known in Jamaica. They see that little logo and they will go out of their way to be nice to you. It is beautiful. The church has done a great job out there. I will tell you that ADRA in Jamaica, when I talked to the West Jamaican Conference leadership there when we were there, ADRA came out and gave out about 3,000 meals, I believe, bags, and then they never really heard from them again. So, just international. Now, yeah. So, again, kind of what we talked about at church, we kind of assist each other, but that is not our territory. When we went to American Samoa, when we went to Jamaica, we asked ADRA if it is okay for us to enter their territory. We have to ask. So when I was asked to go to American Samoa, I had to ask my conference, I had to ask the division, and I had to ask ADRA if this was something we were allowed to do. Internationally, except for the U.S. territories. They don't deploy, they may assist. And mostly it's a financial assist. They really don't come and physically do anything. All right. All right. Up there on the slideshow, can you go to the questions at the end? They're not listening to me? It's going to be like 210 or something. Let's see. No, it's 181. All right, number one. We'll just start from the beginning. All right, the answer's on the screen now. But Adventist Community Services Director, disaster response works with all of the above during a disaster response. So we work with whoever wants to work with us. I told you that Salvation Army didn't want us at some locations. Actually, the Red Cross, the state kicked out of our building in the Panhandle because of some of the things they were doing. So we try to work with anybody that is there. All right, the next question, next slide. The official name for the Seventh-day Adventist organization that does disaster in the United States, Bermuda, Guam, Micronesian Islands, all that stuff, is Adventist Community Services. That would be the next slide. C. All right, next slide. The person in the local conference in charge of the disaster response, that would be D, because the president's got too many things on his mind. 4, in the communities up to 1,000 miles from a disaster area, the local HCSDA volunteers should help coordinate and manage what? Up to 1,000 miles away. What do you think is going to happen a long ways away from a disaster? Collection centers, community collection centers will happen. We had people coming from Boston to help us with the Panhandle fires. So A, 4 is A. Number 5, the correct flow of donations from a donor to survivor. Okay, it's not going to come from FEMA. It's not going to come from Red Cross. So, yes, you have community collections and corporate donations that go to ACS managed warehouse, then to emergency distribution centers, and then to the survivors. Number 6, we talked about this. ACS disaster response warehouses operate whenever the schedules are meeting the needs of the community. Last answer. Number 7, disaster survivors need goods. From where does stuff come from? D. They're unloading their leftover yard sale stuff, and all their closets are cleaned out. All right. Number 8, the local church ACSDR organization should be able to handle disasters involving what? The local church. Local church, A. Number 8 is A. Number 9, stuff is what we do not want donated. To minimize the donation of stuff and make donation operations the most efficient, money, cash is king. If we can get cash, then we can probably negotiate better deals by buying bulk items of the things that we actually need and not trying to find places for stuff that we do not. Number 10, distribution centers are often in many locations within the event area. People can't travel. Guess what? They lose their cars. The roads are messed up. There's a lot of things. So we got to try to keep it as close as we can to them. I've seen many places where we had to have city buses moving people just to get to the centers so they could get stuff. Minimum age for anyone working in a warehouse is 18. 12, to be a forklift operator, a person must be at least 21. D. 13, accurate records are important. That's right. Yes, you're supposed to give this test to me. Yes. When working in a multi-agency warehouse, Seventh-day Adventists are encouraged to take Sabbath. D. When the work requirements are light enough to where we can afford to lose you. In which of the following helps clarify who is in charge of an HCSDA operation and is part of the National Response Framework? B, the Incident Command System. Again, if you want to look it up, look up FEMA Independent Study classes, and there are a bunch of classes that you can take to help you understand this incident command system. Starting to die. Funky noises. Another good site for you to use as a church for your elders and things is Adventist Learning Center. They have some really good training courses on there as well. Number 16, HCSDR Spiritual Foundation for Service says that we must see, minister to the hungry, thirsty, sick, naked, imprisoned, or stranger. I don't think I got to read that one. No, I didn't. Who should address all of the needs of the survivors? This is one we talked about. The wording's not really accurate there. It should be D, voluntary organizations and government agencies collaborating together. 18, that's where I talked about AIM. And D, it is ethical for HCSDR volunteers to, it's not sneak out goods for personal use. And 20, HCSDR is deployed in the United States and Bermuda, but ADRA deploys internationally. Yeah. Yeah, I got to take your picture and prove who you are. I didn't hear you. What did you say? Now you're all worn out listening to me talk? All right. Let's do some drawings.
Really quick, and then we'll take your picture. So that way, when you take your picture, you can leave. Okay? Because I can give him that. Okay, y'all have your tickets out?
All right, last three digits. 742.
A shirt that's not yellow. That's my least favorite color in the whole wide world, y'all.
Yeah, you'll get a yellow shirt, but I don't know how this happened. I shook them up. 743. Better shake it back up again. 743. Who's got 743? Well, I guess they walked out. You got to be present to get it. Oh, here he is. 752. All right, come up. 752. All right. 741. It's her back there, so it ain't yours. All right. 746. That light blue one, our youth like. It's a little more 70s. She won. All right, the next one is 744. All right, that's Sister Leslie. All right, last one. For what she's doing. 739. Extra credit. Extra credit. Who asked? That's for all the stresses in your life. You get a yellow bucket. All right. What? Okay. All right. If you didn't get something, you can see me, and we'll give you some stress buckets. All right. We're gonna pray and say thank you, and then we're gonna take pictures.
And then once you're done with your picture, then you can go, so you don't have to wait for me. Yes, I'll have you.
When you take the picture, we'll get you a certificate, your shirt, and go away.
Give me your test.
Yes.
So make sure your name's on it.
Like I said, it's changed. Don't worry about it. You don't need the extra credit.
Go by the book.
It's the extra credit. What the phone number? That's the problem. Trust me, I am fighting to get this completely rewritten. The presentation is old. It's very hard, but I can't change it myself. All right. Father God, I thank you for this church and for their willingness to step forward when crisis happens. Lord, I ask them that you guide them and lead them in how they can serve their community. In Jesus' name we ask, amen. All right, so if you can make a line, and then Deborah will take your name and give you your stuff, and I'll take your picture.